Good evening. Good evening. How you guys doing tonight? It's Mike Melton back with the From Pain to Purpose podcast. Tonight, let me get ready to share it on my brother page. Tonight, I have the interviews and interviews. Tonight, I have a very, very special guest. Um, no other than the Lieutenant Scott Samis. Scott is the detective that solved the case that changed my life, man. And I just want to thank you, man. What's up, Scott? How you doing tonight, brother?
I'm good, pal. I appreciate you getting me on here. It's going to be probably a little bit tough to talk about the story at times, but I think this is a good thing for people to hear, to know the backside of the story. You look great. Like I said, you look like you lost some weight, so you're
I'm
taking care of
trying,
yourself.
brother. I'm trying. I'm 50. Like it's really do or die now. If I don't do what I'm supposed to do, you know what I mean? So
My good friend Barry Dabrowski says we're in the fourth quarter, so we got to take care of that fourth quarter.
100%, 100%. So I just want to start before we start, brother. I just want to just thank you for like everything you did for me, everything you did for her family, everything you did for my family. You was truly sent from God to come when I didn't really know where I was gonna go at that time. You know what I mean? It was dark, especially after my lawyer died, and then like they came to his they came to my house 2 days after his funeral because they knew he was dead, and like that it was dark. You know what I mean? And then I didn't know what I was gonna do, and then God sent you, man. You know what I mean? So I just wanted to start off by saying that. I always do that with guests that I got special relationships with. Just let them know, because I don't want to get into your story and then forget to let you know how I feel about you and everything you did. So then we're gonna talk more
Yeah.
about that, but I just wanted to start off
No, and
by letting you know that, brother.
let me respond by, I know that it means the world to me. It means the world to my family. It means the world to the team that put this case together, Mike. And like I said, I know you didn't believe it, but I told you we would be close. And when I tell people that we talk all the time, they're like, "That is so cool." And I'm like, I wouldn't want it any other way. I don't think anybody else would. If it didn't go that way, I think it would be false. And I truly care about you. I love you as a man, and I just the pain that you suffered bothers me still today. But I know you appreciate it, and that means the world to me. So thank you.
Yeah, so let's get into it, man. This is about your story. So tell us about where you grew up at and what made you want to get into law enforcement.
So as my mom would be mad for me saying this, I wasn't the best student. I ended up growing up in West Windsor, New Jersey, which again
Wow.
we
Okay.
we played Trenton a bunch of times, and
Yeah.
those would be competitive games. And like I said, some really good athletes coming out of Trenton, and there's a lot of guys that I used to play pickup basketball with after the
Mhm.
season. But I was an all-state defensive back.
Mhm.
Again, had some offers, but the grades weren't there. And it's crazy because where I live now, but I ended up going to Eastern Arizona. Um,
Mm.
Went to Eastern Arizona. I started my first year a little homesick, or real homesick. And I remember my dad, God rest his soul, saying like he wanted me to stick it out there and stuff. And I just was so homesick. There's
Mm.
no communication other than you go upstairs and then you dial the phone. The kids wouldn't
Mhm.
even
Mhm.
understand what that means. But I was lucky enough. I remember when Trenton State was recruiting me, Eric Hamilton, who a great coach out of Trenton State. His name in Trenton should really be
Mhm. Mhm.
positive. He
Yeah.
did a lot of good things there. I remember him calling him and telling him I was homesick, and he kind of laughed at me. He's like, "Oh, a big time recruit now wants to come home and play Division III." So I was extremely blessed for him to take me.
Wow.
I ended up hooking up with Duffy Hoop Gardner, who was a phenomenal all-state football player, also out of West Windsor, a younger cat of mine, but was able to go there with him and really enjoy the time. Again, I don't want to talk about the classroom, but there was one of my best friends, Brian Gallant, was a police officer at the time from Manville, New Jersey. And Brian and Lloyd Ortel, who was a South Brunswick police officer, would offer for me to go ride with them. So instead of doing the right thing of going to class, I'd be riding with these guys like a ride-along program.
Wow.
And as soon as I got in and I watched, and I'm like, well, the Cowboys aren't going to call yet. They haven't. So I'm like, I gotta pick a career. So that's what I knew I wanted to do. I loved the teamwork. I loved how they helped people, regardless if they were locking them up. They were treating people with respect. And I felt that work was something that I really wanted to do. And it's something that I felt I could be real good at. I was always good at talking to people, always treating people fair with respect. And it's just something that, like I said, I really strive to become. So during that time, I was taking a bunch of police tests. Nothing was hitting, and I ended up taking the Department of Corrections test. And, if you talk to anybody who's worked corrections, they get it, right? Regardless if it's a shitty job. I got a good friend who's a major at Trenton State Prison, Craig Sears. He's done it his whole career. He's a major there. It's a hard job. So I ended up passing that test. And I remember speaking with my dad and Brian Galan, and I'm like, I don't want to be a correction officer. And they were like, listen, this is something that's going to make you better. This is going to get you in the door. So I ended up working 2 years at the Department of Corrections, and I don't think I liked one day. But what I did learn, Mike, is how to talk to people better than what I was, right? Born in West Windsor. Again, athletics has always brought me, like you and I always talk about, black community, white community. It never, I wasn't brought up that way. I was brought up who you are, treat people the way they treat you. And again, I give that to my mom and dad and all my football coaches, right, in baseball, because those are the guys that, you and I talk about how do you change lives. And I think it's through coaching, it's through mentoring these kids. So I was extremely blessed to have those guys show me the way. So I went in corrections. I did the best job I could, and I learned a lot. So it was an extremely tough time at times because I didn't like it. But at the same time, they're like, hey, why do people talk to you? Or why are you such a good cop? And I give that credit to corrections. So I always tell guys, I know one of my real good friends, Cliff Akers' son, just got on Monmouth County Sheriff's Department corrections. And I'm like, that's awesome. Because if he wants to become a cop, he's going to get all the tools. And if he wants to stay there, I mean, that Monmouth County Sheriff's Department, that Sean Golden guy has turned that place around. I mean, that's a good place for him to be. So that corrections thing really took off on me as far as just looking back and saying, as much as it sucked, it really molded me of how I was going to become a police officer, detective, and eventually a supervisor. So that was 2 years. Then eventually I took the Neptune City Police Department test. Again, it's about knowing people. I was dating a girl that was related to the chief. I was given an opportunity of a lifetime. Neptune City is a place where I love. It's great guys, great department, small department. But if you want to be busy, that is a great place to work. I had great partners. Jimmy Clayton, I went to the academy with. I don't know if I would have made it through without him. He was always the brains of the operation. And then again, when you get hired by a place like that, you work your butt off. I was fortunate enough to go on loan to the Monmouth County Prosecutor's Office with narcotics. And that's where I was like, ooh, I need this. This is what I was meant to do, that I believed. Great supervisors at that time at the prosecutor's office. I had Brian Rubino, captain, who retired, and then Eddie Kersinbomb, who ends up becoming the chief. Like, you want to talk about learning the job, learning how to do cases, learning how to treat people, when to be tough, when not to be tough. Just solid people. Mike Cassidy was another one, just an old school guy that I try to get on his hip and watch how he did stuff because they were really good at what they did. So I was on loan there for approximately 2 years. Once I got back to Neptune City, I went in the detective bureau immediately. Again, loved it there. It'll always be my home. And I mean, I don't know if you see on the show, I always wear my Neptune City pin.
I saw it.
And again, the prosecutor's office was my life. And that place, again, I hold it so dear to me. I'm so proud of that place. So again, without running off, so eventually I go back to Neptune City. Eddie Kersinbomb becomes the chief at Monmouth County Prosecutor's Office. He's the deputy chief. Billy Lucia's dad, who was another really good chief. They're missing chiefs like that at the prosecutor's office now. This guy, Lucia's dad, I remember when he hired me, brought me in, again, just all about the cases, right? All about wanting you to do work. Just had so much respect for him for hiring me and giving me an opportunity. And eventually I get hired by the prosecutor's office, where I finished my career doing the 16 years. Just like I said, a lot of people leave that, you have ups and downs in your career and stuff, and it doesn't matter how much ups and downs I had there. I love that place. There's a lot of good men and women. And then you have, like you and I've talked about, you have your boobs, and boobs meaning people that are not good people that don't care about what the goals are. And that's kind of the way I've called them my whole life, because again, I'm not really killing them with the bad word, but I'm not calling them the good ones. I'm calling them the bad ones. So blessed for Neptune City, blessed for the prosecutor's office. And it's put me in a pretty good place where I am today.
I heard stories about you. I had a friend that remembered you from his days when he used to be out in the Asbury Park streets. He said they called you White Jesus. He said, yo, Samis used to come through and it was over. He said, bro, when Samis come through, it's over, bro. They coming. You know what I mean? He definitely told me that, bro. You know,
there was so many, Mike. There's so many, and again, like that's where you cherish this job and you cherish the stories. I worked with some of the greatest guys, like Dave DeSane from Asbury Park, like the guy that I trust probably more than anyone. There's a couple of them, but just you meet these connections and you meet guys that want to work, have the same mindset, right? You want to take bad people off the street. Asbury Park is such a great place. There's so many good people, but we did some work down there. I mean, there's bad guys. I mean, real bad guys, including this group. That work needs to be done. And when you take those guys out of the city, you hope that you're protecting that area. But again, that Neptune, Asbury Park area, Neptune City, there's a lot of quality people, and the small few that spoil it, you're able to go down there and you believe you're making a difference. I believe we did. I believe we prevented things. I believe that we took a lot of bad drugs off the street. We put a lot of bad guys away. So I'm truly, like I said, I'm truly blessed for those relationships with those guys down there. The guys that believed in what I believed in, is that do your cases, go get the bad guys, and let that other stuff go.
Now, as you know, on September 14, 2009, my life changed forever. What unit was you on in that time? And of course, you had heard about the case being in that area. What was your thoughts on it before you became involved in it?
So 2009, I was involved in a major wire case called Operation Life. That was Curtis Barnes. I think we locked up over 50 something guys during that time. It was the first wire done in Monmouth County in a long time. It's another case, a lot of great work. And then you had a lot of nonsense at the end that could have been prevented, but you worked with some really bad dudes that shouldn't even have been hired by the prosecutor's office and made life kind of difficult with some things. But during that time, we were really kicking some ass in Asbury Park. I mean, we were doing sweeps, we were doing wiretaps. I had partnered up with Brian Crow from the DEA. Again, another one of my closest friends. He's now the head supervisor of Baltimore DEA. So you can see how he has gotten to a place that he deserves. Just another quality guy, same type of head. He's a little bit quieter, a little bit softer than I am, but just an amazing friend, amazing person, and a really good special agent. So him and I were just really in Asbury Park with the street crimes unit, with the gang task force, and we were just trying to take bad off the streets. Certainly, you get all the information about the homicide. We knew what happened. Certainly, information comes in, Mike, and there was information that came in on you. There was information came in on the drug dealers. There was information. So we're just trying to help out the homicide detectives, with the information. So you get something, you go to the leads or you go to the supervisors and say, hey, we talked to a CI, we talked to a confidential source, we talked to somebody off the streets. They're saying this, they're saying that. So we knew it was horrific, again, because it was Neptune City. It was close to my heart, which all the cases are, but this is a little more personal because I work there. And you certainly wanted to give those detectives and just as much help as possible.
How did you get contacted, and why were you brought in to come on the case when you came on?
So, you know, I don't think any detective, anybody that works with a group, if you like them or you don't like the guys, I don't think anybody wants to come in and take somebody's case. You know, you know there's going to be stress. You know there's going to be headaches, resentment. I remember it like yesterday. Chief Pasterchek was the chief at the time. God rest his soul. He has passed since. Again, another solid guy, somebody I truly loved. He brought me in with Captain DeAngelis, and it all starts, Mike, and this is where some of this story people forget. Eddie Kersinbomb, who I spoke about, was my first sergeant in narcotics, and then he ended up being the deputy chief, and then the chief. He was now the director of Neptune City Police Department. So Eddie was in charge of Neptune City, and Eddie's a no-nonsense guy. Eddie wants things done his way. He wants cases solved. The one thing great about Eddie was you could tell him, hey, chief, I fucking think this is wrong, or this is wrong, and he would give you his side, but he would always tell you the truth. There was no bullshit. There was no nonsense in between, which some of these new chiefs do, which is sad because they don't have to do that. So I have a lot of respect for Eddie. So I knew through Neptune City, through Matt Quagliato, who's now the chief, one of my closest friends.
Shout out to Matt.
Yeah, he's just, again, we'll talk about him, but just another solid guy. And again, I don't like a lot of people, but my nest of people are just solid people, Mike. But Eddie Kersinbomb did what Eddie does. Eddie was fed up with the case. He was fed up that there was no arrest being made. I remember when we were in Neptune City, if we were processing somebody, because I would hide people sometimes in Neptune City during drug stuff, and no one would know where they are because we were trying to do certain raids, so we couldn't have them get the information out. But Neptune City was always a home for me where I was able to do that. But I would walk into Eddie Kersinbomb's office, and Jonelle's picture would be, I remember, right on the board. And Eddie's like, we need to solve this. So Eddie took an unbelievable stance. And from what I'm told, and again, the stories, and again, you get the stories, he marched up to the prosecutor's office and had a closed door meeting with Pasterchek, and he kind of went off with what was going on. He was extremely disappointed. He wanted something done, and he wanted new eyes on the case. At that time, I don't know what's going to be me. I mean, certainly they know my style. That, you know, Chief Pasterchek would have me do things sometimes that no one knew about because he knew I would get it done. So I remember the call, and he's like, bring me up to the office. And I'm like, am I getting promoted? Am I getting yelled at? Is this going to be a timeout? And then I walked in and I saw Captain DeAngelis, who, as you know from the show, Forensics, one of the smartest guys that I've ever met, just tremendous. And they broke it down to me. They broke it down that we needed a new set of eyes on the case. They wanted me to do it. They knew that there was going to be some issues with it because that's just the way humans are, right? I'm taking something away from somebody who's talented but wasn't doing anything with the case. And my biggest question to them is, are you going to let me do what I do, right? Are you going to let Scott Samis be the detective that he always is? Or am I going to be dealing with the boobs, with stories which will come out later? I dealt with a lot of boob stories, which should never really happen with this case. And again, there's a lot of things that happen that the chief or Al wouldn't know about, and I wouldn't say anything because it's just not the right thing to do. But again, always talk about what's the goal. What's the goal? To do a case without the issues, without the bullshit. And when people, when we talk about it, and I've said some things to you, and and again, you don't want to talk about in-house stuff. Sometimes it's not right, but God, it's got to change, because cases like Jonelle, cases like Andre Williams, that was another cold case. Like, these families deserve better. And the prosecutor and the chief and people like that have to do a better job, because there's talent there. There's detectives that want to work. It's just, like I said, sometimes that nonsense really holds up. But with me, I dealt with nonsense my whole career. It just made me work harder, and I wanted to show them that regardless of what they said or did, I knew I had a vision of, I want to solve crime. I want to treat people fair, and I want to get families justice. And pretty much nothing stopped me up to the end. Certainly held me back sometimes with promotions, and got some timeouts along the way, Mike. But yeah.
I knew I told you, we talked about this before, when I knew I was in trouble. I remember when everything happened, they took me in, and we're going to get to the interrogation later, but that part alarmed me, But I knew I was in trouble with the investigation when I had went to my homecoming, and one of the detectives was there, and he was there with his fraternity, and then I pulled into the parking lot, and he came up to my truck. So I tried to really play it off like I ain't know him or whatever, like you know what I'm saying. But we knew each other, and I wanted to know where the party was at. You know what I mean? I went to Keene and we was having an after party. So when I went to the after party and he came in a party and he was partying and just doing this thing and knowing that my wife had just got murdered and he the head investigator, and I said to myself on the way home, if he didn't have the professionalism to leave or not even come there, I'm in trouble. And I knew from that moment, like, this ain't gonna go right, because I just thought it should have been more professionalism if he see me in that kind of environment to say, listen, man, I gotta at least act like I'm going to try to find out who killed this brother's wife. You know what I mean? Like, that's just the way I took it. I could be wrong, but that was a huge red flag for me, and that's when I knew that this wasn't going to go right. Like, this was going to be crazy. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah, I do, Mike. And those are the things like we've talked about, and I've apologized for the office. And again, that lead detective, extremely talented at times, but again, he did some things in this case that I disagree with 100%. He did things with this case that, again, I did different where we were able to solve it. Again, I don't want to kick his back in because I know there's talent behind him, but some of the stuff was just a no-no, right? And then that's where, again, you know, you show up at a personal event and he's not working it. You know, you got to wall yourself off and pull yourself out of there. Again, I don't know what he was thinking, but I've told you from the bottom of my heart, the way you were treated, that I apologize, not only from as a police officer and a detective and eventually a supervisor, but from our office standpoint, there's things that shouldn't have been done. And like I said, I can get into the prosecutor, Christopher Grimicioni, and get into how, you know, talk about a boob, talk about a selfish person, how he didn't know who you were. He didn't go to the papers and say, hey, we've moved on from Mike. Let's get Mike's life back. Because again, these politicians, and they're politicians, Mike. They're not people in there that care. They're people that are looking to make their careers better, and they're gonna fake that crap, or they're right, because it truly shows, right, with this case. He didn't even know who you were. That's embarrassing. You know, and we go in with what happened with the 200 Club later on. I know you wanted to talk about that, but you know, when Danny's doing that stuff, and again, I didn't want to say his name, but when that lead detective's doing that stuff, and he has supervisors and things, and they're, you know, later on they're busting my chops because they think I'm working too many hours, but maybe they should have reeled him in and said, what are we doing here, right? Like, we need to figure this out. We know Mike is now not a suspect, and I know they wanted to get you in with the tape, and when I opened the file, I wanted to get you in with that duct tape also. But those are, like I said, those are things that I feel awful for you. You shouldn't go through that. Nobody should go through that. To feel that, you know, again, especially during a time where, you know, when you look at the file, we knew that you weren't involved. So again,
how long did it take you to actually look at this situation and say, like, this guy don't have nothing to do with it?
Well, again, Mike, when you say, and again, when you take that case away from that lead, there's going to be resentment. There's going to be some bumps. So every time I had to ask a question, or every time I tried to open the file in a different way or do something, there was some issues with the head supervisor at the time. There was some issues with the lead detective trying to get some information. And listen, that's human nature, right? I don't fault him for being angry. I would be livid, right? Someone took a case from me, I would be upset because nothing would bother me more. I wouldn't sleep at night. But when I started looking at the case, Mike, and I just went through page by page, witness by witness by witness, there was some good work, right? Like I talk about our forensics team. I think our forensics is one of the best in the world. I talk about Al DeAngelis. And, you know, I believe that our forensic unit is bar none. I really do. That is a unit that there's been some really good detectives in there. And they did a phenomenal job with that crime scene. I mean, again, we know that the idiot drops the lighter, but to get that trace evidence, to have supervisors make that decision to take it to New York City because we didn't get it. I mean, that's good police work. That's people doing the job. So I always tip my hat, regardless if I wanted to have lunch with those people or not. There was some really good police work with that group. And I always say, when people talk about our forensic units, I say from Captain Ferguson, Al DeAngelis, Barry Dabrowski, now it's Mueller. That is a really good unit, and they do a really good job for Monmouth County. But when you look at the case, Mike, again, that's why it was so important to get you in to explain about the duct tape, because I'm like, Mike didn't do this. I mean, we knew from the streets, we were getting the information. We knew at that time that these guys were bad guys. They were committing these type of home invasion robberies. There was more than a couple witnesses saying that these guys, not witnesses, excuse me, confidential sources saying that these guys did it. But you got to remember, these were really bad guys. I call them savages, right, for a reason, because these guys would kill you, and people were afraid to talk. And that was a lot of the holdback is how could we break the community to cooperate? So my big thing was, again, peeling the onion back. I interviewed everybody that the lead detectives did. I mean, I was in West Virginia, Kentucky, Florida. We went all over, and we interviewed everybody like it was, again, the case was brand new. And we started getting some good information. Every once in a while, you would hit a bump, or you would get some information that wasn't corroborated with what we had. So you had to kind of pass it off. But, you know, the way the prosecutor's office, and I give credit from people before me. And remember, you have the detective side, the law enforcement side, and then you have the lawyers, right? Lawyers are a different breed. So you got the cops, you got the lawyers. Chief Paschek, God rest his soul, would always say, you know, we catch them, and then they fry them and they cook them, right? We pass it on. And those were a lot of issues that I had, because you would have the really good prosecutors, right? Like Rick Incarmona was one of the best. I never really saw eye to eye with him, but he was a phenomenal attorney. He's the guy that I would want working the case. Elaine Lachaud was another one, just really did great jobs with these homicide cases. And then we talk about Mark Lemieux, the best that I say is out there. Right now, he's a Superior Court judge in Monmouth. He's moved on. But thank God Mark was the person who took this case, and I was able to work with him, because Mark gets it, right? He knows the things that we have to do. Never stepping over the line, but hey, we got to go out at 3 a.m, go. We got to do that, go. And then you have other prosecutors hold off, or supervisors hold off. We can wait. It's not the way you do cases. So I give a lot of credit to Mark Lemieux, because he was the one that has to approve the charges. And he followed this case like me. He slept with it. He understood it. He understood what my plan was, how to get it. Eventually, we know Matt Bogner and Larry Nelson took over the case, and they did solid jobs, right? Again, a little more newer to to these type of cases, but they did a phenomenal job. I love Bogner and Larry. Like I said, try to make that guy laugh. He's kind of like stoic, if you remember him, you know. But when you looked at the case, Mike, going back and kind of running around, like, I knew I had to get you in there because you didn't do it. And that's when the phone call started. And I remember the first phone call. You laugh, because I remember the first phone call.
I know, yeah.
And I'm in the Asbury satellite office, and I'm like, I got to get this dude in. We got to talk about this tape, because the way we prepare for cases, Mike, is not just make the arrest. And that's where people don't understand this. And I learned from Mark Lemieux, and I learned from really good prosecutors. John Lockery is another one, just an old school prosecutor that would teach you about how the prosecution is going to go, right? Because we don't want to just arrest them. We want a prosecution. We want justice. So there was a lot of good prosecutors there, a lot of bad ones, but the good ones really showed the way for me how to run a homicide case. Narcotic cases are a little different, right? Homicide, these guys just really, it was about the arrest, but it was about how are we going to convict them? And that's the difference, because everything has.
I remember you told me that.
Yeah.
I remember you told me that.
So I get hats off to those prosecutors. Hats off, again, I some of them are dearly my friends today, and I got a ton of respect for them. And again, you want those type of prosecutors, right? You want the guys that are going to fight for you, that are going to stick up for you, and care about the case as much as I did or somebody else does. So that's where the phone call goes. I call you. I'm like, I got to get Mike in. And if you remember, I'm like, Mike, you had resentment towards the police. You hated the police, which every right you did. And then you got this dude that you hear from your friends call you, and you must have been like, oh my God, what does this dude want?
Yeah, it was
So
like when I first heard your name, I was leaving out of the board office where they had me working at, and I ran into Miss Graham, and she was like, this detective just called me, and this was after Ron died, my lawyer and stuff, like a year or two after, and she was like, this new detective got on the case, and he called me, and he wanted to talk to me. I said, I ain't talking to none of them, and she was like, nah, I think he kind of different. But all kept ringing in my head was Ron telling me they're gonna try to act like they're your friends, but their real job is to arrest you. Don't talk to them for nothing. You get what I'm saying? So then it was like, every time I was about to go on vacation or something, and I was traveling a lot because I was trying to escape what I was dealing with, you know what I'm saying, the alcohol. So I was partying. But every time I was at the airport, you was calling me. I'm like, yo, this dude must be following me or something. Like, what's going on? Like, yo, Mike, I need to talk to you. I said, bro, I'm not talking to you. I'm not talking to you. But I eventually did, and I thank God that I did. But I want to ask you, like, at what time during your investigation did you say we could solve this?
well, again, like for us to get you in there, and again, another good friend of mine, a guy I call Square Bear, Rocco Santorsla, says like, I just don't stop. I
You
just
don't.
continue.
You don't.
Like, and that's I think that's
You
what
don't.
separates me from most, right? Is that you
Mm-hmm.
don't stop. And my goal was I had to get you in there for this case to move on. So I knew once I got in there, again, I'm not telling you what we needed, but once those questions go and you say, yeah, I stepped on the tape, I pulled it off, that's exactly what I thought, but I couldn't say it to you, right? We need you to say
Mm-hmm.
it, right? That would be giving you information, going on a statement. That's you don't do that. So as soon as you said that, I remember sitting in that office in Freehold, right, with that
Yeah,
big desk.
yeah,
And
yeah.
as soon as you said, yeah, I stepped on the tape and pulled it, I'm like, let's go. Because I said this now we push you to the side. We want to get, and what did the defense attorneys do? We had to get all those things that they were going to come up with out of, so a
Mm-hmm.
jury knew exactly what happened, right? So
Mm-hmm.
we need to cover our basis that, yeah, it makes sense what happened, and you told the truth. So of course you stepped on the duct tape. You were in front of her. You're trying to help her. You're calling 911. Like, those are the things that were important to really start the case, was just to get you out of the side. But
Okay.
most important was what you and I talked about. You never promise someone you're going to solve a case, right? You don't do that. That's 101, homicide stuff. You never promise and stuff. But I promised you I was getting your life back because you
100%,
deserve
brother.
back. And I go back to the boob, Chris Scrimiccioni. He had an opportunity to go to the papers, right? He loved sitting in front of the cameras. He had an opportunity to go to the papers and say, yeah, we talked to Mike. Yeah, Mike lawyered up. Yeah, all these things. But Mike didn't do it. We've moved on from Mike. And and again, those are the things, like I said, you want to talk about leadership, or you want to talk about a guy that really just didn't get it. Again, boob, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
that would have given you your freedom to walk around in Trenton. That would have given you your freedom to talk to people at the barber shops. That would have given your freedom to possibly get back in the school district, right? Because you're forgotten now, right? They don't know
Mm-hmm.
what's going
Mm-hmm.
on in your
Mm-hmm.
life. I mean, you and I have gotten extremely close, and you've explained to me the hurt, the heartache, the drinking, that breaks my heart. Because again, I say we because I'm part of that. I was, right? I'm retired now,
Mm-hmm.
6 years, but I have so much pride in that office. That's where that hurts, that we hurt you so much. So,
Mm-hmm.
you know, it's just hard to think that just a little thing like that would have went such a long way for you.
Mm.
Does that make
And
sense?
100%, 100%. And then one more question, like, about that, and then we're gonna get into more like some exacts of what you did and how you did it and stuff. Now, one of the things that really hit hard was, and I want to, because I really want to know this, is this like regular protocol for police to come to funerals and do what they did at her funeral? Like when they came in and then they walked down the aisle, like they basically took all the attention off of her funeral and then turned it into an investigation at the funeral. Like, is that normal, or like
So
depending on the severity of the case, or like how does that go?
So the way I was taught, Mike, is that we do go to the funerals, but it was
Okay.
more to show the family support. It
Okay.
was more to show your prayer, show that you're there from the police community, trying to give you some type of warmth or connection, saying that we're on board. Certainly, you didn't feel that way, and from
Nah, it
that,
was nah, it was they came by and then they shook my hand. But what happened was they was in the aisles and in the lobby and they was questioning people. Then the thing that really messed me up was I went outside, like, all my friends came around me because now they fearing like I was scared at first, like they gonna do this here, and this is about to be the most embarrassing moment of my life, like to get arrested at your wife's funeral. You know what I'm saying? So when they came down, my heart stopped. You get what I'm saying? Like, cause they walked down the aisle and everything. So I think they wanted to see if they could get a reaction out of me or something. But then when I went outside and I was on my way to the car and I'm about to get in the limousine, and then Johnson comes and whispers in my ear in front of everybody, "We still need to talk to you." And that's when I went in the car and I just broke down and I called my lawyer. Like, because at that point, this is nobody remembers really why they there no more.
of
Everybody,
course,
yeah, they took over the whole attention of the funeral. And that part, I was hurt all the way to the end because we can't replay it. We can't take the funeral back and
yeah.
do it all over again. You know what I mean? So that's why I wanted to know if that was like natural protocol for police to do that, because I had no experience with that.
So again, Mike, from what I was taught, all the homicides I investigated, I went to every funeral. Did I go up and talk to people or question people or tell them I wanted to talk to them? I think I did it sometimes. I mean, I specifically remember the shooting on Washington Avenue. A
Mm-hmm.
young male was shot, and it was gang related, and it was just a tough
Mm-hmm.
case. And when we went to the funeral and stuff, I wanted to talk to the girlfriend a little bit, but they weren't a suspect, or they weren't questioned as a suspect ever. So I think
Mm-hmm.
your case is different. And again, I don't know why that supervisor questioned you. Again, I know that guy's got a good heart in there somewhere. I
Mm-hmm.
know I don't agree with everything that he's done. I certainly don't agree some of the things he did as a supervisor and stuff. I
Mm-hmm.
certainly don't agree of him making that taking that funeral away from you to grieve.
Mm-hmm.
But I also don't know what he was thinking. And like I said to you, like, again, I don't agree with a lot of the things. I'll put him sometimes in a category, but I know he's a good dude. Like, he's a good dude. I'm not saying I agree with his police style or his supervision, but I know that he's a good dude. But certainly, I would not have done that unless I wanted to stir the pot. So if that
Mm.
was what they were thinking, Mike, well, they certainly got your attention, and certainly, again, I apologize from our office that it was embarrassing and you weren't able to grieve. But like I said to
Mm.
you, I know that dude has a good heart. It is in there. It's just we disagree with some of the tactics, and he probably disagrees with some of the things that I do. But it shouldn't have been done. And
Uh,
again, I'll make that apology for the office to you. It shouldn't have been done. That you should have been able to grieve. Not saying they shouldn't have shown up, shake your hand, and said they were
mhm.
sorry, and certainly to Jonelle's mother and sisters.
Mhm.
But that type of pressure at that time for you, again, I'll apologize for the office, and certainly I think he would have done things different just from some of the conversations
Mhm.
that we've had, and I think that he had reached out to you with some things too. So I don't want to really
Yeah.
go
Yeah.
off of that, but like I
Yeah.
said,
No, I just was wondering, like, how I'm learning in this process. Now, getting back to you doing your thing, when you sat down to go out and do this, what was your game plan? What was your game plan? What did you say? All right, this how I'm gonna get this done. Did you have it like written out? Like, what was your game plan?
I think every day, Mike, you kind of look at what's hot and what's not. Like I said,
Okay.
I had to attack the case, and when I looked at the case, I immediately said to myself that if we go after this driver, right? Who's the driver? Right?
Mm.
Because usually the drivers are not going in, right? Again, they're
Mm.
just as involved.
Mhm.
We knew it was a female. That's the information we were getting. Um, the one thing I was blessed with, Mike, and a lot of guys used me for, and again, guys like Dave DeSane, guys like Jimmy Hunt from Neptune, what we were known and what we were, I would say this is where my expertise came in, because we treated everyone good, even when we locked them up, right? Never had to put hands on people every once in a while because they did it to us, but always treated people fair, right? The drug dealers, the guys who made mistakes, robbing a bank and things like that. People are human, right? You and I talk about God all the time, right? People are human. People are going to make mistakes. I'm not talking about the savages that committed this crime. I'm just talking about guys that might have a drug problem. You and I talk about your substance abuse, right? I was fortunate enough where those people trusted me. And that was not only an honor, but that's just the way I wanted to operate. And that's helped me with my narcotic cases. It helped me with shoplifting cases. It helped me with bike thefts because people would talk to me. And guys like Jimmy Hunter, guys like Dave DeSane, Matt Quagliata, right? Guys like that, people felt comfortable with. They, that there was the trust with police. They were like, I know they're going to do the right thing. So when I knew that we wanted to go after this driver, it was getting out to everyone I locked up who was out of state prison or federal prison. It was talking with my FBI connections, Jim Diorio, another real, I don't like a lot of the FBI guys. Jim Diorio was one of them, a guy that you could go to, talk to. He got it. Army, West Point graduate, another guy that is in my circle, extremely successful now. But you reached out to these people. You reached out to Long Branch, great police department, Neptune, guys in Freehold, everybody to say, hey, man, if there's arrests, we want you to ask about this case. I wanted to know who this driver was. I remember in the beginning, we were getting the Sue Bird and these nicknames, and you would go to the database and we would come out, with the aliases when people are arrested. And there was a girl in Belmar, kind of fit the description, right? So I jumped on it immediately, grabbed Dave DeSane, grabbed our guys, went down and picked her up and brought her in Asbury and questioned her. And it wasn't her. Had the same nickname, which was kind of weird, Sue Bird, right? Like, so, when you're like, all right, I strike out, but again, you have to mark that off. I did this, I spoke to her, and then you just keep on going. So at that time, the original detectives were out of the case. I went to Eddie Kersinbomb and I requested Matt Quagliata. There was a young detective on the case with Danny. Super, again, another kid, great heart, didn't have a ton of experience because everybody, if they don't understand, Mike, is that when major crimes happen in Monmouth County, you have your police departments, but then you have the prosecutor's office who oversees that. So when you have a serious crime, the prosecutor's office goes in there and they don't take over the case, but they're shadowing the case and they're working the case because of the expertise. If it's narcotics, financial crimes, a sex case. So those things happen all the time, right? Freehold gets a robbery, Monmouth County prosecutor's office detective goes and teams up. And it's just the way it's done, and it works very well. What's great is a lot of the guys that you work with back when John Kay was the prosecutor, back when, the good chiefs that were working and stuff, they would go and get those good detectives that work the cases with us. So that was like almost like a program where you go down, you find out who the detectives are, they go back and they say, hey, this guy's great, we should hire them. That nonsense stopped when they started bringing in these federal people. Just again, kind of took away from what really the prosecutor's office was under John Kay. And the great chiefs of Eddie Kersinbomb. Again, Pastor Check was a federal guy, and I love that guy, so I'll stick up for him. But going after that person who's driving was the total goal. We wanted to stir the pot. We wanted to let these guys know we were out there. And like you said, with my narcotic cases, they knew, the streets knew that I was working this case. They knew. Dave DeSane was with me all the time. Like I said, Matt Quagliata comes on the case, and now the case kind of really starts going. We're putting flyers out. We're going over to Gregory Jean Baptiste's sister's house, and I'm putting 1,000 flyers in all the neighbors' mailboxes, on their cars, whatever. Like, I think at one time they went up to the prosecutor's office and made a complaint about I put too much mail out there. Again, kind of funny, but again, you would have guys up at our office who thought, oh my God, you can't do that. Why can't we? We're spreading the word. And spreading the word and talking to all the people that were arrested, talking to all the cops out there that knew now with my relationship, right? I always talk about relationships. There's another great detective just retired, Eddie Henley. Him and I would talk about it all the time. If you have great relationships with the departments, right, you're going to get back that information. There's another person, Jeff Equals from the jail. I say this all the time. It goes back to my corrections. These guys from the Monmouth County Corrections investigators, the best. Mike, the best. These guys were able to do things, again, that you call them up in the middle of the night because of the relationship. You would probably have to wait 3 days. But because of the relationship that I had with Jeff and the investigators, they would do things right away. Hey, Jeff, I got a subpoena for mail, right? We know later on, and not jumping, that there was a lot of threats going out to these people that were cooperating. So to have Jeff Equals and his staff on board of knowing what we were trying to accomplish, again, it's not just me. It's such a team effort of how this case came to fruition. But again, pounding the streets, getting flyers out, letting people know we were coming for them. And we weren't going to stop. So hopefully, again, I didn't jump around a lot, but that was really that was the tactic of using my sources, using my inner circle of great cops, great federal agents, Brian Crow, Jim DiOrio, Dave Desane, Jimmy Hunt, Neptune, Long Branch, all these great cops to put pressure where these guys, wherever they were going, they were like, damn, they're on this case again. It is the hot thing that everyone's talking about. I mean, I think we put out the Crime Stoppers thing. I mean, they might still be around. We put out so many flyers, and it was just,
I remember that.
It was to stir the pot, Mike. It was to get people to talk. And eventually, because of my relationship with an old dog that I had arrested, I get that phone call. And again, I don't know if you want me to continue, but I get the phone call from a person saying, I have some serious information on this case and I want to talk to you. So again, I don't know if you want me to go into that.
Yeah, that's the girl, right? Narica, right?
No. This is the girl who gives up Narica. Or a guy, or who knows what they were, but they were a confidential source. So I get a phone call. Matt and I are working. And this is the other thing that people don't understand. These aren't 8-hour shifts. This is 14 hours. This is 16 hours. This is getting up, going right in. I remember, my family talking about, missing some of my son's stuff because this case came first. It was the hours, and Matt was right with me, right? And this is the way we worked, and that's why it was so refreshing that Eddie gave me everything that I needed. And again, I take away the young fella because he's a great dude, but I needed Matt. I needed Matt because he knew my working style. He knew that we were going to go, and it was never, hey, I got to go home. I got this, and he's got a great family, and his son's a stud baseball player. So there was things that I was asking him to do selfishly. But I needed him. I needed him on this case with me. So again, we're getting out the flyers. We're getting all this information on the streets. We're pounding people as far as charges, right? Like, again, paraphernalia. No, you're getting arrested. Sometimes you want to work with them. No, you're getting arrested because we want to know information on this driver with this case. So eventually, I get a phone call, and it's a number from Monmouth County. I don't recognize the number. And the person says to me that they're aware of the case, and again, you get a bunch of phone calls like this, or you're like, where's this going and stuff. And the person says, can you meet me? I remember going into Freehold, call Matt right away. Hey, we got to go. We got somebody who wants to meet with us. And I remember we went behind a shopping center and I meet this person, and the person, and again, I call it a confidential source, but the person was just somebody who was so distraught from what happened to Jonelle. And this is where I say that the community needs to help more, and it works both ways. But when I started talking to the person, you really could tell that person cared, right? And that's what we were looking for. Give me something that we can corroborate. Give me something that's going to stick, that we can kind of really start focusing in. And that person said that, that they knew Narica Scott. And for people who don't know, Narica Scott was a girlfriend. And I joke with my wife, she was loyal to Ebenezer Bird forever, right? Ebenezer Bird would have 1,000 girlfriends and she didn't go anywhere. Certainly had a tough childhood. I know her father, good man, old school dude, had done some prison time. But this person says to us that Narica Scott knows who the driver is, who went and committed the homicide. And not only does she know it, she was personally told by Ebenezer Bird at a prison visit. So what that does, Mike, is it now I'm like, I can corroborate that, right? We know that she was the girlfriend. We know that there was a long relationship. We know that She stuck with him through thick and thin. These are the things that we talked about. So my immediate thing is this is awesome. Again, go back, talk to the prosecutor, let them know what we're doing. At that time, I think Bogner was now involved in the case. Mark had retired to go do bigger things in the courthouse, but Bogner again took Mark's lead and was like on board of what we were doing, understood what our tactics were, and again was just a good prosecutor to have when you're trying to solve a case like this. So immediately I set up the interview, and my plan was, because I knew Narica's father, was I wanted to kind of change things up, because in interviews, right, you go to all these classes, you get taught all these techniques, but I thought about it for a long time, and I thought the father, because he was an old school guy, Mike, right? We're talking old Asbury Park, old drug dealer, did his prison time, but when you spoke to him, the dude was respectful. He understood the mistakes he made. He was trying to raise his girls, trying to raise his family the right way, respected the police. And also, like I said, could tell that when you spoke about this case, Jonelle's a black woman. He was very, very proud black man. He wanted this case solved too, right? Like I said to you, it didn't matter if you had the people in this community wanted this case solved. So my strategy was, I'm not only gonna bring her in the interview room, I want to bring the dad. I want to bring the dad so he can hear how I approached it, what information I had, and then again, Nakira, tough street girl, right? Like, she's just not going to come in to the prosecutor's office and just start spilling on a boyfriend that she's been loyal to, writing letters, right? So we did the background work. We knew that she was writing letters to the prison. We knew from subpoena work that she did visit him a bunch of times. So again, not that we can corroborate everything that cooperating source told me behind the supermarket, but you're like, this is good, because it's that story is now coming to life. You know, it's like a big puzzle. I always say, you put the puzzle together, that puzzle's getting better. So we make the arrangements. You know, I speak to the father. The father, again, was awesome, and he brings Narica in for the interview.
Yeah, I saw it on the thing, and then I saw when she said who was the driver, and the crazy part is I met her, bro. I saw her at a spot, and she was staring at me one day, and I'm like, why is this girl staring at me? She's staring at me like, now you got to remember back then I was still drinking and stuff. So then I didn't get to see her testify, because when you can't go to the trial until after you testify. So I never saw her in person or nothing. You know what I mean? So this is my first time seeing her. So then the next day, I'm at a different spot and stuff. I see her again. I'm like, and she's staring at me again. And then I'm like, why is this girl staring at me? So then I walked over to her, and I was like, how you doing? She was like, you don't remember me, do you? And I'm like, nah. I'm like, who are you? She was like, I'm the one that came to spoke up, and so they'd stop bothering you. And I'm like, then she told me her name, then it clicked. And then I ain't know what to do. Like, I was like frozen, like, and I just hugged her, man. Because I remember seeing like the strength and everything that it took for her to have to do that, especially when it came time to like have to testify, like that whole thing. And I knew like how vital she was for the case. And then I asked her, if I could help her with anything. And when I saw her again, just let me know. You know what I mean? Like, I saw her in passing and stuff like twice. And it was just like, it touched my heart when I saw her, because I knew like what she had been through. You know what I mean? So it felt good when I ran into her.
Yeah, she's, you know, I always say, and it's funny because somebody responded, a cop that ends up becoming a chief, really good dude. I don't know where his mind is right now. Maybe he was having some beers, but he was questioning, saying, you know, why didn't Pinto go to jail, whatever. And people don't understand these cases. They don't, if you don't work them and you're not living them and you don't go to trial and you don't testify, they don't understand that. And I always used to say this in narcotics, you need the queen to get the king. Sometimes you got to make a deal with the queen, Mike, because you got to get the king, because the king is so much worse, so much, right? Like so evil. And when you had these guys that did this horrific, right? And I don't need to say it because everybody knows from the shows, everybody knows this was a horrific, brutal, torturing death for Jonelle. And that's what keeps me up at night. And you guys have talked about that. I always think about how scared she was. But people don't realize, like, oh, why didn't this one be arrested? Why wasn't that? There's other people that I wanted arrested in this case that just, from the girls that gave the information out, from another guy in Brighton Arms that eventually we interview and stuff, but they didn't want to charge because these were the people that did it, So when we go back to Pinto, she was threatened, right? She wasn't even threatened. She was threatened numerous times. She gets on the stand and tells the truth, and that's hard. Especially if you're looking at these savages, these guys who, what would they do to her? She was still getting threatened. So when you have people, and I always say, everyone's an expert, everyone's done it, which they haven't. Again, I laugh with Rocco Santorsla and I told you that my Square Bear friend, who's was just really amazing detective, very square bearish. I always tell him, like, show me your invest reports, show me your cases, and we'll talk about what you've done. Again, so when people say, oh, Elizabeth Pinto, you had to make a deal with the queen to get the kings, and not just one king, 3 vicious ones. So that's how I try to explain it.
Yeah, but I respect the fact that you called me and you told me, like, listen, what you think about this? They're only gonna give her probation or whatever as a for her rule. And I told you, like, hey man, she the one. If it wasn't for her, this thing is would have been tougher. You get what I'm saying? So I didn't care about that. Like, I didn't care about, like, long as they got the people that really did it. You know what I'm saying? So
right, and I don't
do that. I didn't care about that.
And when we spoke to Jonelle's family, and that was something that you do, right? You go to the victims and you go to the people that loved her, involved in her life, and you're saying that this is the way to do it, right? And again, you got people out there who just don't understand that, and it's fine. But as long as you understood, Jonelle's mom and the sisters understood, that's all that matters, right? But for Pinto to get on that stand after being threatened, look at Narica Scott. She didn't even want to testify, right? We had her because it was on video, right? The video spoke for itself. She didn't want to tell the truth. The judge actually held her in contempt during court. Eventually, she realizes, I got to tell the truth. It's not, and even when she was on the stand, she told the truth, but she didn't want to. She was still backing up Ebenezer Berg, right? He was still writing her letters, threatening her. So again, I don't want to jump, but once the arrests were made, and again, I'm jumping a little bit, these witnesses were getting threatened all the time from these guys. And then you and I, again, I know that you told me that story about when the dudes knew I came down to the jail and we moved some guys. But, like, to get on the stand, like, everyone says, oh, I'm going to testify, I'm going to do this. But to truly get on the stand and give information that not only corroborated the case, but, again, without them, we don't put this case together. These arrests never happen.
Now, take me to the process. Once you got Pinto, you got all the stuff that you need, you got the DNA stuff. Like, what happens? Do you have to go to somebody and present it to them before you make the arrest? Like, take me through that process.
Yeah. So anytime there's a homicide or a serious offense, and again, because the prosecutors and the detectives work so closely together, you got to go through those prosecutors to get charges, right? And those prosecutors then are going to go through their chain of command and say, this is what we got. Not with Mark Lemieux, because he was the boss. Chris Decker was another one who was the head of major crimes. You could go to Chris and he could approve the charges. But something so big would have to go up the chain to the prosecutor and say, hey, this is what we're ready to do. This is what we're doing. And certainly he loved that press conference, right? Like, he loved getting in front of those cameras. A lot of people love getting in front of those cameras. But that you have to get permission. So you put the case out. Now we're corroborating the information. We go from the Narica Scott interview. Now I'll rewind. So again, when we talk about there was some good police work in the beginning, there was, because the original detectives went and they spoke with Pinto. Right. So you're Pinto now. You speak to the detectives. She's given them, when you look at the reports and what I reviewed, she's given them information. She's given them some phone numbers, and we'll go with when we can corroborate some of the tower hits too. That's another thing I want to talk about, Mike. But when you can start corroborating things, you're like, is she involved? Is she whatever? Like if I knew she was Ebenezer Bird's girlfriend at the time, man, I would have skipped all the hard work and went right at her, right? But you just didn't know at that time.
Mm-hmm.
But I end up interviewing her 3 to 4 times. And every time I left her with Matt, I would say, something's wrong. Something's wrong. You didn't know what it was, right? It's like, again, I was a detective. I was a cop for a long time. I'm hoping that I can figure out she's lying about stuff. But she was a sharp girl, right? She was a street girl at times. She was in the military. She was polite. She, again, when we talk about a person, Mike, for her to say that to you, like, I know there's good in her. I know that she made some really bad mistakes through her life, and she has to deal with that, right? Things that bother me and things that bother you, like that's something that sticks with her. But we knew, Matt and I just kept on saying it, man, something's up with this. We took statements from her. We locked her in some things, and then you would go back and she would be a little bit off. I took that as she was scared to death. She was scared to death of these dudes. And why wouldn't you? We find out later that Ebenezer Bird, and they send Gregory Jean Baptiste, and they meet her up in Keensburg, and he takes her for a conversation and pretty much says, you know nothing. Can you imagine? You're a young girl, you got kids. This guy comes up there. He's a savage. She knows what these guys have done. And she's just like, how do I protect myself? So I don't make excuses for Elizabeth Pinto, but God, you got to understand on the human side, she
100%.
She was scared to death.
Yeah, I could tell she was. So once you, what's the feeling after they tell you, all right, you got enough now, you could go make the arrest? Like, what's going through your mind? Like, what's take me to that moment.
Yeah. So again, charges were done. There's an individual named James Fair. He's also eventually charged in this. So we'll get James. We'll talk about James and we'll get him out of here. James was the individual at the party with David James, aka Munch. That's the apartment next to your wife's. So James Fair was. I laughed because I think Finkelstein did Operation Dead End, was a really good wire. It was one of the ones after mine, and he took a lot of people out of Asbury. Again, did some good work taking some bad guys out of there. But James Fair was one of the main guys, and James Fair is a dope. I remember I had spoken to James Fair. I was wired up with Brian Crow. We spoke with him at a place in Wall at a funeral cemetery, and he's just a silly fool, but he's a bad guy. Selling drugs, anything he could get his hands on, James Fair would touch. But he's a likable guy. Like, you would talk to him and you're just like, come on, man, get your life together. I remember at that time I'm with DEA. I'm trying to help out the case. I'm wired up and we're talking to him and he's giving out this information. Again, detectives knew that he was at this party. We knew that he had some information that he went back to the girlfriends and be like, yo, where does he live? Where does David live? Is the money really in there? So that was already corroborated. And I remember him telling me he was, I don't know, in the Bloods, he was I don't even know, a captain or whatever. And I'm just like, I'm not even a freaking sergeant yet. And this idiot is a captain in the Bloods. You know what I mean? So Brian Crow had fun with that. But he wanted to sign up as a CI. And we were hoping he couldn't, because federally he didn't hit all the boxes. We couldn't use him. And he was still doing nonsense. But we certainly believed that he had information and we wanted to know. How many people did James Fair tell about David Munch's apartment, which was important, right? Because how many robbers were at this party with David Munch's girlfriend? How many guys heard that conversation? We know for a fact that James Fair was the one who jumped all over it, and that's why he was charged, and that's why he took the plea for that. Wasn't in that robbing group. He had his own robbing group, home invasion group. But like I said, when you say the case went cold or we were trying to do things, we're always trying to work the cases. And then narcotics is such an important part of the game, because when you put good cases together, Mike, with narcotics, you're going to get that homicide information. I mean, that's what happened with the Andre.
I said that.
Right.
I said that. I remember being at going out of the board of education office at my job, and one of the ladies asked me, like, so what do you think is going to happen with you? I said, me being from Trenton, I understood that it has to be a big drug bust And then some people are gonna get arrested, some people are gonna be in some trouble, and then some people are gonna start talking about the case.
And
You know
that's
what I
and
mean?
yeah, and then 2009 Operation Life was the wire that I talked about. That's how the Andre Williams homicide gets solved, right? Andre Williams
Mm,
was a gang
mm.
member. Again, never deserved to be beaten, hung by his friends, Sean Harris. But that was a case that case was sitting in the basement with dust on it. And I started getting information from all these cats saying, Scott, these are the dudes that did it. And
I
you
got
know,
a I
go
got a
ahead.
question. I got a question for you. When I came in, all right, so one of my friends, he had the show said, one of my friends had took me to the street and to find out what happened to her, because no, of course those other detectives, they wouldn't tell me nothing. So I wanted to go find out for myself, like, what happened. I was distraught. So I went and told one of my boys, he took me to the street. He took me to a gang member, and the dude said, come back in a couple of days, I'll tell you. So we went back in a couple of days, he told me what happened. So then after that, y'all called me in for the duct tape. So I don't know if you was on the case then, because my lawyer was still alive. I don't think you was on the case yet.
No, when so I know that they spoke to you a couple times about the duct
Yeah.
tape, but you didn't want to speak to them.
No, the one time I went in with my
That
lawyer.
that was that was with me.
No,
That's
no,
when.
not in Freehold. I went
Oh, another time.
to the Asbury Park joint.
Okay, yeah, I'm not.
But
I
when
was.
I walked in and I sat down, they knew that I had did my own investigation.
Yeah, what's
You know
wrong
what I
with
mean?
that? Yeah.
No, I'm just saying though, who I was trying to figure out, how did they know? Was the dude I talked to, was he working for them, or did or was they following me? Because they knew, they told me. They
Yeah.
said that we knew. Oh, so you wasn't on the case yet, so you wouldn't know
No,
that.
I wouldn't know, but again, if wiretaps were up at that time, Mike, that could have been some talk.
Wow.
It
Wow.
could. I don't know for a fact.
Wow.
Like I
Wow.
said,
Wow.
that Operation Dead End, Fink did a real good job. He took some bad guys off off the streets in that
Mm-hmm.
case. And we tried to piggyback the Melton case off of that.
Mm-hmm.
Again, God rest Chief Pasterchek. That was another wire approved by him. I mean, that's what he brought to Monmouth County, because we were doing them before I started Operation Life. So like I said, when people don't think we're working them, we're trying to work it all angles, and especially, like I said, the good detectives, right? The good detectives are always going to ask. They're not going to get pissed off. They're not going to be jealous. They're not going to try to cause issues. They're going to try to work the cases to get cases solved.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. So, but my point was, when you make those arrests, just like with Andre Williams, my point to you was, like, that case was nowhere, right? Like, man, that poor kid, that family. I mean, that was such an awesome thing to tell that family that the arrests were made. And I think it was 7 people that we were able to lock up in that case. And during the arrest, during the roundup, Dave Desane and I spoke with an individual who gives up that homicide during that arrest. So you use, back to it, we use those narcotic cases, those wires, to get information to solve other crimes.
So now that y'all have the thing to make the arrest, how do you actually arrest these guys? Or do you just tell them that they charged with it? Like, because I guess a couple of them was locked up or this or like. So
Yeah,
what's the process of doing that?
So there was a bunch of them were locked up. Again, you and I spoke about this. There's a time that Matt Quagliato and I, we go to Northern State Prison, and this was like middle of the case when I got it, and we spoke with Sean Harris. I mean, I'm thinking of Andre Williams. We spoke with Ebenezer Berg, because again, he wasn't represented by a lawyer, would never be used in court, couldn't be used in court. But during that interview, when we spoke with him, and my goal was there, because I wanted to bring closure to you, I wanted to bring closure to to Miss Melton and the sisters. My goal there was to tell him, let's make a deal, right? Let's make a deal. And he came in there, and again, he knows who I am, and he was respectful, but he was broke, right? You see, like, I mean, again, I don't care who you are. He's a major player in the gangs. Probably does his thing from the jail. We knew he was threatening people from the jail. He had that power. But we broke him down, Matt and I, and he talked to us freely and stuff. And he wanted to set up that interview with his attorney and our prosecutor, but he wanted that deal in writing. We don't do that. So I knew when I left that prison, and Matt and I looked at each other, and we're just like, were like, these are the guys, 100%. Like there's no question that this is who we have to attack. Again, we got to cross off everybody from the case, but we knew when that guy looked at me and says, yeah, I want to make a deal, whatever, he's letting me know what happened. And you could see probably the only time that I saw him, because you watched him and stuff. He's a thug. He's a savage, but you watched him and stuff. But again, respectful, wanting to say, hey, I'm going to get my lawyer and let's talk and let's make a deal. You don't say that unless you did it, right? Of course. So Matt and I really left there saying, wow, this is great. Now, again, we wish his lawyer was there. We wish he would have came to the table. He never comes to the table after that. So we fast forward to the Narica Scott interview. As soon as we leave that, the most important thing we do now is, right, she gives us the driver is Elizabeth Pinto. Look at Matt. I probably did that a bunch during these interviews, and you're like, son of a bitch, we were right. We knew it was there. Just now we're really getting there, right? Like it's there. Some of the guys are in jail, but we want Pinto now, right? Pinto's huge. We need her to tell us the story. But we also have to handle it very careful, right? So she knows some of the guys are locked up. Again, this interview is probably the most important interview of my life. That's how important this interview was. So I remember Matt and I, it's the next day, we end up getting approval. We go down there. We go to her house. It was extremely important that we didn't explain to her or talk to her at the house, because really we're not allowed to interview her unless it's on video. So that's important for me to be like very like sneaky in the sense where I remember we knock on the door and I'm like, hey, there's some new information. There's some arrests made, but we need to talk to you. Are you willing to come with us down to, I think it was Perth Amboy, one of the Amboy police departments. They were awesome letting us use their facility. But we needed to get her in front of that video camera and to have this interview taped. And I felt, and Matt and I talked about this, nonstop for that many hours from the time I had spoken to Narica Scott, like, we believe this is it, right? This is going to tie the case all together. So we get her, we talk to her. Again, she's extremely cooperative, like she was all the time. Is she as confident? I don't know if she's as confident or thinking she can play us, because she knows now the arrests are made. And I specifically asked her, do you know that there's been arrests made? And she knows. So, again, driving to the police station, we're talking about her kids, talking about anything to keep her mind off of what's going to happen. And again, we're able to go in there and it's game on, right? It's again, this is for you. This is for Mrs. Melton. This is for the sisters. This is for all the mistakes our office made, right? I need to get this. And I start going after her. Again, if you, in your picture, you can see the binders. I carried these things everywhere I went. It had the reports in it, the originals. It had the reports that I was in. It had pictures of people, IDs. And the biggest thing, what I wanted to do with those is I want the people I'm interviewing, I want them to see Jonelle Melton. I want them to see this amazing person, how pretty she was. Again, I talked, when you talk to everybody, what did everybody say about your wife? She just changed lives in the school district. She changed, when those kids talk to her about the school, you're like, she did good, So I wanted her to feel the frustration with me because of the lies that she had told us. Now, again, I knew it was because she was scared, right? I didn't 100%, 1,000,000% bet on it, but I'm like 99.9%. She's been bullshitting us because she's scared to death. And that's how I attacked the interview. And again, the show doesn't show you the whole thing. It kind of just goes in. Again, if we were that great detectives, we'd make a lot more money, and we'd be Israeli special forces, So, but that interview was so important. And when she starts breaking down and she starts telling us the truth and she starts explaining about the latex gloves, that wasn't really out there about the latex gloves that they used. So when you hear that, I mean, I think that's the interview. And I think when I was on the stand and they had good defense attorneys, he was like, well, why did you look at Matt Quagg out of time? Because we had it. The puzzle was done. This is it. But there was more work to be done. So she names Gregory Jean-Baptiste, Jerry Spalding. She says that she was the driver. She said that Ebenezer Bird had a gun. They had these black gloves. They had latex gloves. That she did these type of robberies with them multiple times. And I don't think she knew that they were going to kill somebody, But she certainly had to understand that these dudes were bad dudes. She hung out with them. She partied with them. So she made the worst decision of her life driving these dudes around. But what it did for us was it locked the case in. We go, how does the case get better? You know, and this is where, like I said, I'm blessed to be trained by some really old school detectives. I remember working burglaries. We used to get a ton of them. Drug addicts would hit all these houses in Neptune, Neptune City, Belmar. All, you know, they would destroy homes, and you know, that's violating people's house. That's messed up. So those cases were extremely important to me too. So what I learned back in the day was when you would lock these guys up, you would want them to reenact where they went. Hey, show me where you stole, you know, the $50 and the gun. Show me where, you know, you took, you know, whatever, the lady's vase, you know. And that's where I learned that technique was, and I used it my whole career, even sometimes with drug dealers, or we're looking at houses, you know, show me the house. You get in the car and you drive them around. But what we did was, you know, we spoke about it, again, had a team meeting, and, you know, everybody was like, this is a great idea. Let's do it. We had to get forensics down because it had to be videotaped. And, you know, again, talk about some friction, talk about how sometimes these cases, people can mess them up because of personalities. The person from forensics comes down, and I'm not getting along with that person as it is because of certain things. I just want the job done, right? I don't have to have dinner with this person. I don't have to hang out with them, but I need this person to do the job. And the person came down, and Pinto started feeling the friction. And the person was a supervisor at the time and tried to throw the weight. And I'm like, time out here. Like, we need to get this job done. This has nothing to do with. So that's where the jealousies or the positions might interfere with the. Now I'm worried Pinto is going to not want to show us. I'm worried Pinto backs out at that time.
Wow.
It's crazy, right? Like, again, the public would say that never happened. And then that person ends up going to a supervisor above me, somebody that we've talked to, and try to be like, you know, Scott was rude to me. Scott was, we got to get the job done. And I can be very hard to deal with at times, but because there's a goal. And that goal was, we needed to get Elizabeth in the car. When Elizabeth tells us, you know, this person's making me feel uncomfortable. I don't know what this person's dealing. She, you know, the person's not talking to me right. So that's, again, we were able to bring it together, and hats off to that person, was able to put it to the side and do the job. But those are some of the headaches that you're like, that should never happen. You know, so Pinto gets in the car, we do Miranda, we put the camera on. And my whole thing is we go over everything that she said to us at the Amboy Police Department. So we get that, again, corroborating what she said. Haven't talked to her since that, other than saying, we want to talk to you again, which she, again, volunteers to come down again. Whoa, I just hit something, Mike. What did I do?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I just hit something. Hold on. Oh,
can you see me?
I got you now. I hit something with my fat finger. I'm getting worked up. So, you know, Pinto still agrees to come down, doesn't lawyer up, still cooperating. Again, why does she get a deal? Because of all these special things that she did when she didn't have to. So we go live, and we're like, take us to where you were with Ebenezer Bird. She does the directions again. The whole video shows it, you know, make a left here, make a right here. Make a left. And she said that from the time that crime happened, she was never back at Asbury Park or that area. That's what she says to us. So when she takes us to Bird's mom's house, you're like, this is good, right? We get out of the car. She explains what room they're in, points to the house, who was in the house, identifies Bird, Spalding, and Gregory Jean Baptiste as, you know, consistent from now what that interview was with Amboy. And then we get in the car, and this is where you really are like, holy shit, right? Because she identified the hospital, right? Everybody knows Jersey Shore Trauma Center. Best hospital probably in the world, saves everybody. But she identifies that hospital, but she's like, I'm not sure where to go or what to do. And eventually, and again, it's so crazy because I was in the right lane, and she tells me to turn on Brighton Avenue, which is a left turn. And I almost cut off like 100 people, you know, to get over there. So there was definitely some questions in her head. Is she taking us to the right spot? So when we get back onto West Sylvania Avenue from Brighton, she makes us take the right. And this is now all being video recorded, which is the best evidence in the world. So that jury is seeing what I'm saying, what the person in the back with the camera saying. They're living what's going on. So when we get to Brighton Arms, or where we get to Munchies, that was the liquor store, which she describes as, I think she describes it the liquor store, but describes she parks up somewhere where there's a convenience store, and then they walk across where she parks. Here's the most corroborating part of this whole investigation why you knew Pinto was telling the truth. When she gets there, she tells me she thinks that's the spot. Yep, that's the spot. But she turns and she's like, I was parked up there, but this is different. And this is where, again, you're relieved, but you're like, this girl is telling the truth. So at that time when the crime happened, Mike, that was overgrown. That was an overgrown, like Neptune City has no wooded areas. I remember people used to throw tires out there. That was a big deal for us to stop these tire guys. And I ended up coming back from court. I caught these dudes in the back area because it was private. It was all woods. But when I take her there, that's changed. Now it's a parking lot. It's a parking lot for the hospital. It's a parking lot. And there's no trees. There's no woods, nothing. And when she says that this is different, I don't recognize this, you really start feeling, man, this is it. Right? This is testimony. It's live. She's being recorded and it's corroborating everything that we know. So she goes through it, right? She goes through it, and eventually we get the whole video done. We go back, and then we go back to the prosecutor's office and we show the tape, and Bogner says we're locking her up now. But we all come in agreement. How do we prepare for this case and win? Right? These guys can never see the streets again. These are the guys that are going to do it again. These are the guys that are in jail. The jury doesn't get that, for shootings, for having guns, for having drugs, for fighting with the police. These are bad guys. So that's where I say a lot of people have been cops at certain places, done things, but unless you've done these type of homicide investigations and work with prosecutors that are on the same team with you, you got to give the queen a deal to get the kings. And that's where we go. So eventually, again, Elizabeth Pinto's arrested. And she eventually comes in with a lawyer, and that deal is worked out where she's got to take the stand. She's got to tell the truth. There has no inconsistencies. And every time the lawyer brought her in, or we call it a proffer, where she saved things to say, she would remember something new where you're like, oh my God, it's getting like her memory's getting better, or if things are coming back to her because she was so scared, right? So scared, as we talked about, that things started triggering that memory. So again, that's why that deal has to be made with her.
All right. So then we get to the arrest is made, and then it takes forever to get the trial. You know what I mean? It was like I'm sitting there like,
it's a process.
I get out of rehab the first time, and then I start drinking again, and then they tell me I gotta retire. I mean, they told me to take a test for me to retire because they said I went through too much. And then I'm like, so then I'm like at home all day. So now I'm drinking. I'm thinking this. Then you call me and you like, Mike, I got bad news. We gotta go to trial. Like, these guys don't want to take no deal. Then I'm like, damn. So now I know what you told me, like, you're gonna have to testify because you the one that found her. And their whole job is they're going to try to make you like you the one that did it. So now I'm stressed. I don't know what to do. I'm like, when is this going to happen? And it took like almost 4 years.
Well,
I'm thinking like
it's crazy. Like, you asked me about the justice system and stuff and how things happen. And that's one of the things where it can get frustrating, especially not on the police side. We're going to keep busy, the detective side, but for people like you, victims, families, right? Why does it take so long? Because of all the nonsense attorney crap, right?
I kept getting those emails,
the subpoenas, and they're fighting Miranda, and they're making motions and this and that, and that's where I think everybody, including judges and prosecutors and defense lawyers, wish it could be faster. But you're talking about 4 individuals' lives on the table here, so you want that justice system to do the right thing. You want that justice system to be fair, because we don't want these savages to come back and file appeals where they could be let out on the street one day, right? That would be the scariest thing in the world for everyone who took the stand, but everybody who would have to live near these guys, because they would go right back into it. So we know that was hard for you. Certainly,
Yeah.
what that time did for them was, and my job got even busier because I was subpoenaing the jail. I was subpoenaing the prisons. We were going through mail. We knew threats were being made. And that's where you and I laughed, because I remember Gregory Jean-Baptiste were able to corroborate on Facebook that he threatened Elizabeth Pinto. We're able to get those records back. We knew that from some of our confidential sources at the county jail. And again, the relationship with those with Jeff Equals and those investigators, right? I always say those guys are awesome. But because of them, I was able to make moves where as soon as those threats happened, I show up at the Monmouth County Jail and I'm like, Jeff, I got to move Baptiste. We got to get him away where he's not able to make these threats. And I remember Jeff saying, all right, we're going to go get him. I go, bullshit. No, I'm going. And I remember walking into whatever tier they were in, 70 inmates, and calling his name out. You would have heard, right? This is a prison. This is a jail where a lot of guys are going to prison. A lot of bad guys on in there. They saw me, a pin dropped. And then I went up and I told Gregory Jean-Baptiste, pack your shit, let's go. And you could see it on his face. He was like, fuck. He was like, oh my God. And then you could hear dudes talking like, yo, Sammy's in the pod. This is crazy. And then when you tell me the story, it's
again, one of my friends told me that. He said that he never seen nothing like that. You came on the unit to get him. So the we get to the trial. Was there any time like during the trial, like what was going through your thoughts while it was going on? And was there any time that you had any doubt that this was going to happen? I mean, that it was going to be a conviction.
I think, again, if you look at their lawyers, Mike, I think the one lawyer, I want to say was Baptiste's lawyer, the guy from Newark, the black dude, real sharp dress.
The big guy,
that dude squared away. That guy's a really good defense attorney. At that time, and I think it's Mark was his first name. Mark had never lost a case in Monmouth County. He beat everybody, including our office. I think there was a gun case that he beat us and stuff. So the dude's a really good attorney. Now, he's really expensive. I don't know how they paid for him, but he's a really good attorney. So I had a lot of respect for him, and it made me, again, that case has to get better as it goes during trial, right? So I'm now going, Matt and I are talking to victims. We're trying to keep Pinto, through her attorney, on board. We're meeting with people. We're trying to convince people that these guys aren't going to hurt them, right? We're dealing with Narica Scott. Now, my 14-hour days or my 9-hour days are turning into like 18-hour days. My wife might have thought I had a girlfriend or something because I was away so much. I mean, those were the hours that we worked. And I remember, and we talk about, again, stories about how the bullshit or how the nonsense, the inside stuff was hurting the case and stuff. So I was a lieutenant at the time, and I was working so much. We're only allowed to have 200 hours of comp time, right? So you're not going to believe this. So 200 hours of comp time. So now once you get to 200, the chief, the prosecutor, whoever came up with this wonderful idea, whatever deal was made for the contract, including whoever was in the Superior Officers Association, once you get to those 200 hours, you're supposed to use them. Well, if you're working homicide or you're working major cases and you're busy, how are you supposed to use those hours to take off 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and start that bank over? So what I did is I end up writing an email to my captain, and eventually it goes to the deputy chief. And I'm like, hey, for the last how many years my life's been over, right? This is all I've done, but I do have this time. I'm also working now 18-hour days. No one else is going out with me and Matt. I mean, there was times we were going with witnesses. We were there 2 a.m, assuring them that they weren't going to get hurt, assuring them that they could get on the stand, right? That's stuff that nobody sees. So those hours added up. So let's just say I had during that time of trial, I had another, whatever it was, 300 hours of comp time, which those guys said I was going to get. Well, at the end of the trial, and we'll talk about some of the other stuff, at the end of the trial, they took that time away from me. And that was one of the big reasons that I got in an argument with the chief, because he went back on his word. And but to work so hard and to just ask to get your time and not get that time, it's just lousy. Right? How do you treat people that way?
That's crazy.
Crazy. So those are one of the things that bother me still today, saying that all the work, and then getting a email confirmation from your 2 supervisors. We got your email. You're good. And then having the chief bring you up and saying, hey, we can't do this because of this or that. Just lousy. That's just lousy.
So you get to the time and it's time for the verdict to come in. Take me where you was at. I'll tell you where I was at when the verdict came in. When I got the call, because Barbara told me.
You want to hear
know what's
story?
crazy? Hold on. First, one second first. I'm gonna tell you what Barbara did though. Barbara told me before I testified, and then we was talking, and I told her, I said, my birthday is coming up. I hope I don't have to be in here on my birthday. And Barbara looked at me and said, the verdict is going to come down on your birthday. And I was like, man, get out of here. You sound crazy. So
Mike, let me cut you off. That's another unit that doesn't get the applause or the recognition that they deserve. Those girls in the office that deal with the victim witness.
Yeah, I love Barbara, man.
Amazing people. Right? That's a different type of people because they're with the families, they're helping them out. Like I always hats off to that unit and those girls. And I don't know if they have any guys in it, but they do the Lord's work in that unit. They're extremely good people and they don't get paid enough. They should get paid a lot more because they bring the families close to us. They're with the families when, like there wasn't a day that I couldn't be in the courtroom because we're sequestered, but I was just doing circles, right? So I'm just doing circles. I testified, I think it was over 2 days. And
me too.
Those lawyers tried to give it to me and stuff. And again, I was extremely prepared. Again, I give hats off to the prosecutors in the case. I give hats off again to Mark Lemieux for always telling me how to get prepared and the way to do it. I would be running on the treadmill with Mike Magliosa and I'd be reading my questions. Usually him and I would be talking at that time, but I was just going over the case and reading it and just trying to be so prepared because I didn't want to let you down. I didn't want to let the Jonelle's family down. So when you're preparing for trial, like I said, if you haven't testified in these type of cases, it's not a great feeling. You're not like, whoa, I can't wait to testify. But I was so confident because I prepared so well that whatever they threw at me, I was going to be able to, again, when you're telling the truth, it's easy, right? That's what we always say. If you tell the truth, it's easy. When you start, getting involved with some other stuff, it's going to be hard because it doesn't cooperate. But I studied hours and hours and hours on this case, and all the detectives that took the stand did a phenomenal job of testifying. It was. Again, I don't know how many witnesses they took out, but so I told you want to hear boob stories, you want to hear things that the public wouldn't get. So I'm driving like around the courthouse, right, every day, right, driving around the courthouse. Now, if you remember. And this is the one thing I'll give the chief credit for. If you remember, during that time of the trial, Sarah Stern was a girl that had gotten killed in Neptune City.
Yeah, I remember
thrown
that.
off the bridge. Yeah. Friends did it. Just another awful case. That trial was going on the same time as our trial.
Down in the hall and stuff, right?
Yeah.
Like, yeah. I saw that.
And again, Mike, this is just observation. This is stuff that I saw, and I'm always going to tell the truth. You watched. I would say, throughout that trial, there was hundreds of people going into that courtroom. Prosecutor, right? There was the press going on. There was the big case of the century. I'm like, where in the fuck are people coming to watch Mike's case, Jonelle's case? That bothered me. Give the chief credit. And again, I call him out when he's a boob and I call him out when he was good. He said to me, Scott, I want to come watch you testify. And I'm like, Chief, don't come. Because I didn't want him sitting in there, again, was so far off of what I was doing at that time. So I was kind of like, just, the prosecutors are doing a great job. Not one time, right? Other than the victim witness, not one time. Chris Riccione make a left instead of going right and coming in there and showing respect to your wife, to Jonelle Melton's mom's daughter, to the sister's sisters. And those are the things that stuck out at me that bother me still today. Because again, why are they in the positions, the politicians? Are they there for the right reason? Are they in there for having that power and trying to better their career? So that was something that really bothered me. But, when I told you this story before, you were like, there's no way. So I'm driving around in a circle and Barbara and one of the girls from Victim Witness calls me up. And I might be maybe 10 miles I think I was 10 miles east of the courthouse because, again, it's been a couple hours. I'm like, should I go home? What should I do? You know, my whole life of always doing the right thing as far as cases and giving it 110% and going over the board, getting in trouble sometimes, getting put in timeout. This case was so important to me for you and the family and for Jonelle. These guys had to go away. So I get the phone call. I'm in the car and they go, hey, Scott, we got a verdict. Now, again, I think if you ask 800 to 1,000 detectives, I don't care if you're new, I don't care if you're old, but I'm an old school guy. That's the way I look at myself because I did old school things. What do I do, Mike? What would you do? I hit the lights and sirens and I'm going. Right? I'm not missing the verdict. Right? You would, right? You talk to any cop, they'd be like, if you didn't hit the siren, something's wrong with you. I don't want to miss this. This is years of work. Now a decision's made by a jury. Is there enough where they find that these guys are guilty, right? So I'm going fast. Again, I'm not going crazy, but I'm passing cars. I got lights on. So when I get to the courthouse, that car, the wheels are smoking, the lights, you know, I turn the lights off, I turn around, and there's Kersinbomb, the prosecutor, boob. And he says to me, what are you doing? Why are you driving like that? Your lights and sirens are on. And I said, again, respectfully, hey, boss, Jonelle Melton, you don't know? The verdict's in. He had no clue. Had no clue that the verdict was in. Had no clue. So he's throwing a tantrum. Again, was I wrong? Lights and sirens? Yeah, but do you understand that? And I remember running upstairs and he follows. Now he knows it's a verdict, so he wants to make himself known. And you have the secretary, the paralegal of the cases there, and she did a phenomenal job. Like just that's the person who puts, like, again, the discovery and putting the reports together. So she's there. The prosecutors are there. You're getting all the victim witnesses there. You guys are there. So I run up and I'm just like, I could give two shits what this boob just said to me. But I see the chief. And again, got to give credit when credit's due. The chief was there. So I say to the chief, hey, man, just so you know, I blew the doors off this guy's car. He's all pissed off. Now, nobody knows this, right? I'm going to say it. So during Superstorm Sandy, this boob was, during the storm, put his lights on as a prosecutor. He's not a cop, right? He's the head law enforcement officer in Monmouth County, but he's got lights in the car, right? Never went police training, certainly shows, but he puts lights on trying to go through an intersection and gets into an accident. You want to talk about a hypocrite, right? So this dude knows how important this case is, or you would have thought, but he's going to be a hypocrite and be mad that I went lights and sirens when this guy did it and got into a car accident. So that's what I'm saying with that baloney stuff that you deal with during the way. Again, the chief kind of took my side, and again, hats off on that one to him. Certainly didn't back me up later on, and we'll get into that. But I look at you, and I'm just like, this is it, right? This is, we're going to get the verdict.
I was at Cheesecake Factory. I had an appetizer, and I was just finishing my second Long Island, and they called me. And then, of course, we wasn't that far, so we came down, hard butt down there, and then we went in, and then like a couple minutes later, they came in. What's going through your mind before when they getting ready to read it, and then once the verdict came down?
I think just praying, truly praying to God that they got it right? Juries have a tough job. Sometimes they don't get it right. Sometimes they do. This was a case for me. I mean, if we didn't get the verdict, again, this case still bothers me with nightmares at times and frustration sometimes when I think of work, how things were done. But this was a decision for me personally, because the way I'm emotional, the way I think, the way I put everything into it, if we didn't get the guilty verdict, it would have broke me. I thought the prosecutors did a great job. I thought the witnesses did a great job. Again, victim witness from the paralegals, from forensics. Again, this is a team effort. As much as I'm leading the charge and no one's stopping me, I needed all those pieces of that puzzle to put it together. I needed that help. And there was a lot of help. And like I said, as much as I disagree with a lot of things that was done in the case in the beginning, there was good work done, Mike. And that helped me with the case. But that decision, I'm waiting, Mike, again, I'm probably sweating like I'm going to the electric chair. but just praying that we're gonna get a guilty verdict.
Then a verdict comes down. I'm elated. You was happy. We looked at each other. You see the video of me. The picture of me walking out and you walking out with me. To go in the hallway, to hug and stuff like that. But
Yeah,
before that,
I think we get the verdict, but they bring us out because they have to do the tampering
yeah,
charge,
yeah,
the
with the
lower
tampering
charge.
thing. Yeah,
So,
yeah.
and again, blessed that they know that these guys were threatening everybody under the moon, not to testify and not to talk to us, but to see the emotion on you again, because I'm very emotional, kind of breaks my heart to see Jonelle's mom, right? That she was there every day for the trial, to see the sisters there, to have them thank me. There's no promotion, there's no award for you to hug me, for you to, again, to thank me for doing my job. I mean, that's what it's all about. That's as a detective that just wanted to do the right thing and solve cases and get closure from people and maybe do things my way, but it was always for the right reasons. And I saw just the hurt. You still had so much hurt, but I also think there was relief. Your dad was there, right?
No, he didn't come to the verdict. He came to the trial. Yeah, to trial.
Did he come
No,
to
he
the sentencing?
He came when I testified.
Okay.
Yeah, I was.
I met him. He was awesome.
Yeah, I was in rehab.
I know now where you got it from.
Yeah, I was in rehab during the sentencing.
Okay.
So but once the verdict came down, I did see the bird guy. He turned and looked at you and he gave you like a nod of like approval, like, and I noticed it and I asked you about it, like, why did he turn his head and like he like nodded his head at you like you was right type thing.
I think again, I think the nod was that, but I also think, Mike, it was I probably should have taken the deal. Right? I think, the offer would have been maybe between 10 and 15 years because it was so important to give you closure and Jonelle's mom and the sisters. So again, I don't know if you guys would have approved that, but those were the numbers that I thought possibly we wouldn't have to put everybody through trial. We wouldn't have to go through such pain and such long hours, heartache, and certainly it was worth it in the end. I wouldn't change a thing because these guys needed to be put away for life. But I think that it was respect because he knew I told the truth.
I saw that.
And we got him, right? We got him. How many years did he think I was going to get away from this? And we got him. So I think that's a little bit of both with that nod, but it's cool that you saw that.
Now, once this was over, like, what kind of toll did it take on you professionally and personally?
I mean, there's so many cases, Mike, that has beat me up through the year. The Seidel case brings me nightmares. Certainly your wife's case. There's a case in Colts Neck where the brother ends up killing his brother and the kids and the wife and stuff. These are things that no human being should witness, and when you have detectives and first aid and firemen and when you see this stuff constantly, you kind of get numb to it, right? I believe I'm a tough guy at times and stuff, but again, my friends know and my wife knows, my kids, I'm an emotional guy. And when you think of things, and like I said, what bothers me at night sometimes when it's quiet is thinking how scared Jonelle was, thinking she just came home from church, right? And I played this through my head 100 times, and we talked about it with the show and stuff, and this is what beats me up, that she did nothing wrong, right? I talked about the Andre Williams homicide. Andre was a bad guy. He was ripping people off, didn't deserve to die, didn't deserve his case to go unlooked at or not solved, but he was involved in it. Jonelle, again, a phenomenal woman, school teacher, great friend. Again, everybody has marriage issues. People go through things. You guys were going through something, but it didn't stop your friendship. It didn't stop what brought you guys together was, again, the teaching stuff. You guys, I remember you telling me she was still doing your lesson plans, right? I mean, again, if there was issues or if she wasn't trying to make things right, she wouldn't be doing that, right? She would have been like, hey, I'm not doing this stuff for you. So those things keep me up at night sometimes. Those are the things that bother me is what was she going through? And how did she feel? How scared she was? And they say, we talk about like what can the show bring, right? Like the neighbor hears commotion. The neighbor hears possibly a gunshot, doesn't call the cops. Maybe these shows, somebody says, that doesn't sound right. People bother the cops for all kinds of crap, right? There's a cat in my yard, or my neighbor's playing Van Halen too loud, like nonsense stuff. And the cops do their job. They go out and they investigate it. So I don't know, again, the lady across from her, adjacent to her, sees a silhouette of a black male in the clothes, the dog's barking. Why don't you call the cops? Why don't you do something? So I'm hoping these shows maybe hit somebody in their head and say, damn, I watched that show, I need to call the cops. And maybe it prevents something, or it gives something. But back to, personally, those are the things that eat me up. I think it'll eat me up for the rest of my life. I'm blessed to have a wife that was also a cop, worked in Red Bank, lieutenant detective.
That's dope.
So I'm blessed to sit with her now and talk about things, and she can understand it. The struggles that I go through. I talk to my good friends that are cops that I'm close to. It's a small group, but those are the guys that know the work that I did. They know the pain that I suffered. On the professional side, this case, because of the hours we talked about, that they wanted to take those hours back from me because of, there's another boob story. And I got to tell you that during the trial, and when I was taught, Mike, and again, you're going to be like, there's no way this happens. During the trial, you're taught as the lead detective, when the prosecutor asks you to do something, you do it, right? Mark Lemieux wants everyone to wear blue ties. You wear blue ties. Mark Lemieux wants you to go interview the witness in Syracuse. You go do that. Mark Lemieux wants you to grab another detective, go to New York City and grab evidence. You do that. Why? Because they're the prosecutors, right? They're technically in charge, but it's a team. You're working with them. So during the trial, and I'm working hours and hours and hours, and I remember Larry coming into my office, Larry Nelson, who was the prosecutor with Matt Bodner, and he's like, Scott, I got to go to New York City tomorrow, and this was all the great work forensics did, and he says, can you call a supervisor, I almost said his name, a supervisor in, what the heck is he in, white collar, right? How busy is white collar? Those guys do a good job. I could never do that. That's a lot of math and a lot of patience. But again, a unit that they work hard and they do stuff, but they're not essential. They're not working around the clock, right? They go home after their shift and they go home to their families and they park their car and they have dinners and stuff with their families. So Larry says to me, can you call white collar, talk to the supervisor? I want to take detective so-and-so with me to New York. And I'm like, of course, like you're asking me, we're not asking for hard things. We're not asking guys to switch cars, get new uniforms, get promoted. We're asking saying, hey, and I make the phone call. Hey, supervisor so-and-so, it's Scott, blah, 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 blah. How busy is so-and-so? Well, he's got this case, but not so busy, blah, blah. The bullshit. I'm like, well, this prosecutor is asking for him to go to New York City. Can you make that happen? I'll let you know, right? When they used to call me when I was the boss, I don't care what unit it was. I don't care if it was the dog catcher. Hey, Scott, we need help. Let's send guys. That's what we're supposed to do. But here's the inside nonsense. So when I ask, eventually I'm told, no, that kid is too busy to take one day to go with the prosecutor who's working the case, and that's the guy he wants. Who knows? Maybe they wanted to go for pizza. Maybe he felt comfortable. Maybe he just wanted to take a ride with a detective that he liked. Does it matter? Does it matter, Mike?
Not at all.
You need a witness, right? So what this guy does is he goes, so I kind of lose my shit, as sometimes I did. Not always the right thing to do, but I'm just like, are you a boob? I'm not asking you for much. This guy's not busy. I find out around the circle, he's not working on no cases at the time, or his cases are caught up. It wouldn't have affected the unit. So I kind of go off on the supervisor. I call him a boob, or I tell him that he's useless, which, again, a smart guy, but just no clue about police work. So, of course, he then runs to his boss, who's the captain, and he tells on me like a girl. So that supervisor was very close with the prosecutor, which, again, all these federal people like have ruined some of the things that John Kay did back in the day with such great detectives and great office. But this person, again, very, very good cop, at what she did, but she immediately calls the prosecutor directly. There's no chain of command. Scott just yelled at this supervisor and he wanted this and he wanted that. So when I get called up to the chief's office, this is where now we talk about how did it affect me in my career. I'm thinking I lost my time, right? I just lost 300 hours because the chief is going back on his word. The deputy chief's going back on his word. It is what it is. I can eat that, right? Because I'm like, I'm going to stay a little bit longer. I was already in the process of talking about when I was going to retire, but I wanted to stay on a little bit longer just to really relax because my whole career was just 110 miles an hour working cases. And now I'm a lieutenant. I'm like, I want to, again, get back to some teaching, get back to treating the guys and the gals real well. So, of course, I get brought in on that. And, you know, the chief and the deputy chief are giving it to me. And I'm just like, this is just insane. From the prosecutor yelling at me, taking my time, people complaining that I got more time than them because I worked it. So I pretty much there was like ready to punch the ticket. I was so frustrated with everything that you do for an office. And I love the office still today. People talk to me. They're like, you're not mad. I love the Monmouth County Prosecutor's Office because there's some great detectives that still work there. You know, there's a guy just retired, Ed Henley, should have been promoted. They play the game continuously instead of trying to make it better. But the place is, but it really beat me up. Right. It really beat me up. And there's just something that I wanted to say in the case. And I know we're ready to get off soon because I remember you telling me, I could see it in your face. We're going long, but
no, we all right. We all right.
In the case, there was phone records, right? So there was a detective, a female detective that was kind of on the blacklist at the time. For me as a lieutenant, she's a really good detective, like really good. I don't think we got along personally. But God, she was unbelievable with phone records. She was kind of squared away when it came to cases. She was tough. She got it. You know, these are the people that you don't have to go out to dinner with. You don't, just because she's arguing with the bosses or she believes she should be where, like as a supervisor, I hope guys that were under me learn that if you treat people well and fair, that's what it's about. Right? That's what it's about. So this girl did a phenomenal job on this case. And she ended up getting passed over. She ends up suing and winning a lot of money. God bless her soul, because some of the people that again, Chris Grimichione did the wrong things. But she ends up getting some money. But I was never friends with her. I don't even think she liked me or I liked her. But she worked hard for me. And that's what it's about, Mike. And that's what these people forget. It's not about busting chops because you're a supervisor or treating people bad because you have the power to, or you're the prosecutor. I'm going to transfer you because you said something that we didn't like. That doesn't help the community. That's the frustration that my passion, you can hear it in me, still bothers me because they still haven't learned. People still haven't learned in that office to do the right thing. But I wanted to give her, because she did a really good job testifying. Those phone records, again, prove that those guys were in the area. And that's something that I'm not good at. So that's another thing. Like, instead of treating her good, they treated her whatever they treated her. And she wins this lawsuit where if they just treated her great, the lawsuit probably doesn't happen. She probably gets promoted because she deserves it over some other ones. But it's just that type of nonsense that at the end of my career was happening. I was just like, I remember going down to my office after meeting with the chief and the deputy chief, and I'm like, fuck this. I'm emotional. I got tears in my eyes. I'm just like, I can't believe these dudes are saying this. I remember talking to the chief and telling him, I hope one day your son doesn't recognize that you're like this. Because he went from, you know, Scott, the prosecutor said that you yelled at, and fucking right, I yelled at that supervisor on white collar because it was nonsense. And the chief and the deputy chief should have took my side, and they should have told the prosecutor, stay in your lane here, boss. We just solved one of the biggest cases in Monmouth County, but they were just coming down on me. And again, Mike, when I'm wrong, I take it, right? I've been put in timeout in some units and probably deserved it. I don't think you should yell at prosecutors, but certainly because of my passion, I talk loud and they come about it. But
I'm passionate like that too.
You know, never was trying to be disrespectful, but always was thinking about the case. And the arguments has always been about the case and how we work it. So my patience, again, full circle of jumping around a little bit, I knew it was time. So I end up sitting down in my office. I know I was shedding some tears, extremely emotional, that a job that I love so much, it was time. It was time. There was some other things happening with another cold case homicide where The director of that case wasn't listening to me. The chief wasn't listening to me. The prosecutor wasn't taking my advice. The detective, who was not a bad detective, certainly wanted to be promoted. And this is the problem. Kind of was like, Scott, I got to go with the prosecutor on this one because I'm going to get promoted that way. And eventually that case goes to shit. And if they just listened to me, we probably would have given the family better closure. No one takes responsibility. And I don't want to talk about what case it was or who the people was, but that was all going on the same time. And I knew, I'm like, it's time. So I eventually go up and I make a deal with the chief. And again, watch how they go against, they go against what they say. I said to the chief, I probably got a certain amount of time. He's got to be 30 days. I'm ready to retire. And they probably were relieved that I said I'm ready to retire, and they could run to the prosecutor and say, you know, Scott's going to be gone and you don't have to worry about him no more. But I told him, I said, you took my time away from me. This happened, this happened, this happened. I disagree with you as a leader. I disagree with you as the way you supervise. But they're the bosses, right? So that's what you got to deal with. So I said to them, Brian Crow, right? The guy I talked about, my DEA partner. I'm like, Brian was working cases in Monmouth still. I'm like, for the last 30 days, from what I've done for this office, right? Thousands of narcotic cases, thousands of arrests, testified, things that I did really good. Even if you were like, I hate Scott. Scott told me to go fuck myself, or stop calling me boob, right? But at least going out the door, let me go out with my head high. I was ready to go. It was time. I was tired of the nonsense. I was tired of them ruining cases and not understanding the concept of how to do them. And I was like, I'm ready to go. And they're like, 100%. We'll send you to the DEA, 100%, 100%. So I go downstairs, and the way you do with the pensions, you log on. I tell my wife, I tell my captain, who at that time was a really good captain. I consider him a friend, different style than me, very proper guy, where I'm very street. But he was extremely upset. He was upset because they went back on their word about the time, and he knew some of the things that were going on about that other case, that I was very upset that they were making decisions that just were so messed up. So I told him, I'm like, I'm going to hit the card. And he hugged me. And again, I knew there was tears coming down. And I'm like, call Brian Crow. Hey man, I'm going to come back for 30 days. You and I are going to put the band together. I'm going to roll out of here with my head high. And I'm like, I'm good with it. It's time to go. You just know. And then Monday morning comes, right? And this is, again, what a boob move by the prosecutor. He sends me this email, right? Well, again, bunch of garbage. Scott, thank you for everything, you know, blah, 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 blah. I'm really interested in the state police task force. And you're not now going to go to the DEA. You're going to go to the state police task force. Little did they know, I play softball with all these studs from the state police. So as much as I'm upset, and again, you don't trust them with anything now, right? You don't trust them. And we'll go into, again, I want to tell you the plaque story and the 200 Club story, but I don't trust anything they say. So I was like, you know, I call my wife, I call my best friends, and I'm just like, this boob did it again, went against their word, gave me their word that this is what they were going to do. So as you see, it still bothers me today. Just liars, right? Just liars. Spin it to what they want. Oh, he's not going to get what he wants. I'm going to make him do it. So I went to the state police for 30 days. I worked with a great group of guys. The supervisor was awesome. They let me go do surveillance and just do what I had to do. But that took a toll on me. That case, like I said, personally, professionally, in between with that other stuff, I knew it was time to go.
So let's talk about your relationship with Matt, man.
So it's crazy, right? Because again, you never think that you're going to work a case in Neptune City as powerful as this case was. So I went to the academy with a guy, Jimmy Clayton. I think I mentioned his name. Jimmy does everything. I call him MacGyver. That guy's really smart, can do pretty much what it all, was very helpful through my career, would do my complaints for me. And Jimmy had his own knack, but he also let me go when we worked patrol together. So Matt was a dispatcher when we were on patrol. Matt was a really good dispatcher, right? Like squared away, on top of it. You know, if I'm calling out a stop at 2 a.m, dispatchers would be like, shit, Scott's at it again, right? I'd be like, hey, dispatch, I got, you know, I'm stopping this car. Then dispatch, I got a narcotic arrest. And Matt would always be willing to help and stuff. So eventually, when his time comes, they hire him, and it's just a phenomenal hire. So Jimmy and I kind of took him under our wings to train him. And I remember we had him, I think we had him for like two weeks, and he made his first drug arrest with us. I remember seeing how happy he was. And, you know, Matt, you talk about Matt's a really good cop. He was a really good detective. He's a chief now. He's a phenomenal chief, leader. Those are the guys we want, leadership. Kersinbomb, Lasitra, you know, Lucia. Those are the chiefs. Pastor Check. Those are the chiefs that, again, that county deserves. But Matt's the guy who we're best friends. We talk all the time. He changed the case, Mike, because he knows how I think, and he knew that this case had to get done. And he wasn't scared to work those 15 hours, 16 hours. He's a better man. He's a better human being, phenomenal father, husband. He's got a phenomenal family. And Neptune City's blessed to have him as that chief. And there's been good chiefs there. Chief Johnson, who hired me, just a phenomenal guy. But Matt is he's very special to me. And he always will be, and treats me as a true friend, right? You got those friends where 3 o'clock in the morning, who can you call? Matt's on that list. So I just love him. I truly, bottom of my heart, I just love the guy.
That's dope. That's dope. Now, you invited me to the 200 Club Awards dinner as your +1. Tell Wendy I said thanks for letting me go. I remember you called me, said, I'm supposed to take my wife. I'm taking you because you got to go and see what's this whole thing about honor, and explain to people what the 200 Club Plus Awards dinner is and like what happened while we was there and stuff.
So if you see that plaque, Mike, that was a plaque for our hard work. So our team went to that dinner. The 200 Club is run by, I think Kersinbomb's on the committee now, but Honecker, who was another prosecutor, he was a good dude, went to the defense side, but I still like him. He loved Monmouth County Prosecutor's Office. They've been on the board, I think, and then you got, I think, Angelini. She was a senator or something. Bobby Angelini was a sergeant. Again, another nice guy from our department. These people have been involved in this 200 Club that they give out scholarships. They represent all first responders. If it's first aid, firemen, law enforcement, and they recognize great cases and jobs, like shootings, and when officers respond and they're able to talk these people down. And, it's been around a long time. And I've been fortunate enough to work cases where we've been recognized. And I say we as a team, like Operation Life, other than one boob who didn't deserve to work that case. He's a liar, that guy, but that's a whole nother story. But this club brings law enforcement together. The state police is there. It's a fancy dinner. I mean, you witnessed it. It's put on very professional. So we had a whole table of pretty much everybody who worked this case. Award was put in for that team. So when so again, I explained to Wendy, I said, I love you. And, you've been to these awards, and her, and, again, she's a phenomenal wife. She understood that I needed to take you. I needed you to see, first of all the people that worked the case, right? It's good to know, like, the way you were treated, that there was, again, regardless of sometimes it went bad, that we stuck with it. And it was important for me to show you to everybody, right? No one knew I was taking you, right? But everyone was, when you sat at the table, I mean, there's people who were like, who's that? Right? And again, that burnt my soul. How do they not know who you are?
I remember.
How do they not know who you are? So my wife was able to forgive me. Again, Matt knew, and everyone, once they find out it's you, they're like, this is awesome. And it was kind of getting a lot of attention. And I remember you saying to me at one point, the prosecutor comes over to me, and I walk away and I want to throw him over a chair. Probably wouldn't have been good for me retiring at that point, but he has the audacity to come over to me, right? This is the prosecutor of the Monmouth County Prosecutor's Office. Think about this. Had no idea who you were. Scott, right? He knows I'm pissed off at him. He knows that I call him a boob. He knows that I'm leaving, right? Again, I'm trying to be respectful. We're in front of everybody. He has the audacity to come over to me and say, "Who is that guy?" And then after, right, the nerve.
Wow.
How does he not know? And then again, it just shows you that character. And then he says to me, "Can you introduce me?" You want to talk about biting your lip, right? You're like, are you kidding me? And again, try to do the right thing, right? Chief Passer Check, and a lot of my good friends now jump up on my shoulder, "Scott, do the right thing." And I was respectful. I brought him over to you. And if you remember, I introduced you. But for you, and I got a question, and I know I'm in your show, but how did you feel that dude didn't even know who you were?
I was so like used to that kind of stuff going on. You get what I'm saying? Like, I was so used to, like, when I asked the guy at the press conference, like, I made him apologize to my mom about the funeral and stuff. And I could just tell, like, it wasn't no affection. Like, it wasn't no connection to these are the people that this happened to. He just basically told me, I ain't see no other reason why nobody would kill her. So once he told me that at the press conference, already, like, I wasn't surprised at that place. And I was in a different place. By the time I didn't got to this awards dinner, now I'm sober. I didn't did my 12 steps. I know how to practice forgiveness. I didn't made amends. So that's why I went to you like, "Yo, Scott, you gotta chill out." You was like, nah. I was like, nah, but I that's why I love you as a friend, because from the beginning you kept it real, man. Was like, nah, what they did to you was wrong, and I'm gonna get you your life back. And once I knew, like, yo, this dude is serious, and it wasn't about like who I was or what color I was or this or this. It was about right or wrong. And when I knew that that was real, I was like, yo, I'm rocking with this dude. So to take you back to that question, I was so used to that kind of stuff, it didn't really surprise me or really affect me like that. But I knew you was upset, and that's why I was trying to calm you down, because I'm like, yo,
I
you
would have
gotta, like,
had to ask you for some bail money. I was so upset, you know. But then the freeholder Tom Arnone, who was the mayor at Neptune City, another great guy. I think he does some great things for Monmouth County. He came over to me because I think he saw that I was upset, and kind of we talked about what happened. And again, I don't want to go in that conversation because I respect him so much, but he was able to calm me down a little bit. So throughout my career, Mike, anytime there was like a big case or there was like team stuff like Operation Life, or my guys worked a great case, I would always try to do something special for them, right? So I would get them plaques. I remember getting the prosecutors. I made them the clippings from homicides, from the Sean Harris case, or if it was this case. And it's just appreciation for me, right? It was money out of my pocket, but it was from them to understand how much the case meant to me, and for them to understand that there might have been some yelling, there might have been some disagreements, but it was always about the prize of the case. So I would go out and spend money, trying to hide it from my wife and trying to move it around. But, you know, some of these things were expensive, but I didn't do it because of selfishness. I did it because I wanted to show them how appreciative I was for their work. So when we get that plaque, it's like a unit plaque, right? So it's like the unit. Now, if you and I talked about it, or if I questioned every normal cop in the world, they were like, "Scott, you probably deserve that plaque. You should have taken that plaque with you." But I knew, again, where I was at the point in the office and how this guy was treating me and how the chief was treating me. So I took that plaque. When we got done, I was thinking, there's one plaque and there's all these detectives sitting at this table. I'm like, I got to do the right thing here. I got to get everyone a plaque. So I take the plaque. I take it home with me, right? So this time now, remember, I'm gone from the office. I'm at the state police. I'm working. I'm doing my things. But I'm like, once I'm done with work, I'm going to take this plaque and I'm going to go make plaques for everybody. I made plaques for people that I didn't even like. Because it was the right thing to do. That's the kind of leadership that I always pride myself on, right? Don't have to have dinner. Don't have to date the person. Don't have to hang out with them. But if they worked the case and they did some good, I believe they deserve something. So I went out and whatever. I got 6 or 7 plaques. And I remember, Like it's crazy. Like no one believes the story, but I remember getting a call from the chief. Right now, he knows I'm pissed off at him. He knows that I'm calling everyone boobs and I'm done, right? So he's kind of on some tippy toes with me. At a time, him and I had a really good relationship. Now I can't stand him because of his leadership and because of his taking things back. So he's kind of piggybacking, like being very careful. And he's like, hey, Scott, the plaque from the 200 Club, the prosecutor wants it back immediately. Think about that. After all that, just think about it. I'm like,
crazy.
That's
crazy.
I'm like, this is the captain of boobs. Like, are you for real? They don't know. So I said, Chief, you're going to really be pissed off, or you're going to be upset that you even asked me, what do you think I'm doing with the plaque? And he's like, uh-oh, here it comes. And I said, Chief, the plaque's at an award shop. I said, I got the same plaque for everybody who worked the case, including the secretaries, including the paralegals, including, like I said, people that did good on the case, but also caused trouble on the case because it was the right thing to do. So as soon as that was done, I brought all those people in Chris Decker's office. I remember calling them up, and I remember telling the story to Eddie Henley, who was rising star at the time, and I'm like, this is what's going on in this place. This is insane. And he couldn't believe it, right? And you're just like, what is going on? So I immediately gave the plaques out, and then I took the plaque, ran up right to the third office where all the bosses are. I walked in the chief's office. I didn't even ask permission. I put the award on his desk and I walked out. Wow. Right. So when we talk about, like you said, some roadblocks, why did you want to retire after? These things are such childish things, but this is what goes on, and this is what happens, and this is why sometimes cases don't get solved, because all this bullshit. And people, the community, deserve better.
Wow. Then I called you up, and then you came to the scholarship awards dinner, man, and gave you the plaque. Like, how did you feel when you got the call, and then when you actually came up with your family and stuff?
So you knew at that time, that time I had retired. I'm working in the school at Neptune City Police. Thankful for that. Again, happy to be home where I love. Really enjoying myself at the school. But I had gotten that offer for DEA in Phoenix, Arizona, and we were making those plans to move. And I remember you telling me that you wanted us to meet and things. And I remember getting the call. And if you kind of look about everything that we've talked about for 2 hours and 11 minutes, there's a lot of emotion still going on at that time. I'm so happy that you got justice. I'm so happy, but still kind of stained the way I walked out, right? Like a place that I loved, the way I was treated. But again, it was meant to be. It's fine. And I remember you calling me, and I didn't know what it was about. I just thought you wanted to say goodbye because you didn't tell me anything about the award. And I think the coolest thing is, again, I know Wendy couldn't come, but I got my son with me. He's young. I remember getting up there, and I don't know if I ran into your sister first or who it was, but to get hugged the way I got hugged. And thank you, Scott. And for my son, who, again, my parents taught me right. My coaches taught me right, Mike. It's never about color. It's never about who anybody is. I don't care who you are. You're a good person. Samises are going to love you. For my son to see the Black community embrace me the way it was at that game, and I still didn't know what was going on. I'm like, damn. I said, I think I'm like 5 white people in this entire gymnasium. I'm like, but this is good for my son to see. This is a learning lesson that there's great people everywhere. It doesn't matter who you are. And I was so blessed to see you because I know I was leaving, and just to give you a hug and to see you doing. We always talked about the sports, and you and I continue the conversations of being role models and giving back to our community and coaching and doing these things with the tournaments are a way to do it. And to be there for Jonelle's event, extremely emotional for me. Probably cried inside a couple times just talking to people. And I remember, I'm watching the game, and there were some good teams and some good players probably in the NBA now by the time, you post all the great things that you've done. But my son's like in awe. Like, he's like, Dad, this is cool. This is the tournament. There's all these teams. And I remember, I think it was Big Guy. I think it was one of your friends who was running the tournament. I hope it's not one of those dudes that had passed, but it was a big
Yeah,
guy.
he did.
And I'm sorry for that. But I remember, again, I can remember it like yesterday. It's halftime and everybody's off the court and he introduces you. And again, it's almost like when I was in the jail, you could hear nobody was talking and everybody's eyes were on you. And you started talking about this white cop who saved your life. And, there's some tears going down. But the most important thing, my son's watching this, right? My son's watching. This is how it's done. This is how communities get together. You recognize it. I've recognized it. And then for you to bring us out there and, my son's walking out there and the things that you said to me, there's no plaque. There's nothing that touches my heart. There's nothing that I would change because it was love. It was love. And you and I have become such close friends. And this tragedy has brought us closer. And I think about you all the time. And for my son to watch what you said and to hug me. And then the greatest thing was once you were done saying all this stuff, and then I turned around to go back in the crowd, they come out of the stands and they're hugging me, high-fiving me, and love.
Yeah.
Love from a community that sometimes doesn't trust the cops. You brought me there. You hated the cops. You hated everything about our office. And for us to change that, there's no words to that. That's, again, we're all trying to go to heaven, Mike, right? We talk about it. God-fearing man. I'm hoping God's like, all right, Scott, I'm going to push you over because of the great things that you've done from the coaching, from your cases. But it meant the world to me. And that plaque sits on my wall. That plaque, the prosecutor can take that other plaque and wipe his ass with it. That just shows you the pettiness. But the one that you gave me is the greatest award that I got. But it wasn't just the award. It was the lessons that you taught my son. It was the lessons that we both have taught each other. And nobody can take that away. So that again, the same pettiness comes full circle around where good always wins. And that's important. I know how much you're involved with God now and the things that you do. And I'm a God-fearing man. And I truly believe just things are meant to be. We certainly don't know why bad things are meant to be, but we hope that this story and my journey and your journey changes one. If we can fix one, if we can change one, I think we're doing good. So that award, when you show me that picture and I think about that award and how emotional it was for me and for my son to always have that, it means the world to me. So thank you again.
Indeed. Two more questions.
Yep.
How did you feel when both of the shows came out, and then the cases hit the national, stations and stuff like that, the cold case files, and then the one that just came out last week? What was your feelings about those?
Again, I believe, you and I have talked about it, that these shows, if we can change some person to call the police, if we can change somebody to say, hey, this doesn't seem right, even though it seems petty, and we can save a life or possibly during when an incident's happening or crime's happening, and because that somebody watched the show, they do call the cops. I think that's what it's about. I think it tells the story of Jonelle. I think both shows, you and I, the first show, we were kind of like, we wish they talked more about us. I think the second show did a real good job to show, and you want communities to understand, man, there's good cops and detectives, amazing cops and detectives. Like the cases that they showed during this last show, really good police work. There's guys that care like me. And those are the people that the community should count on. Those are the people that, they're out there still. They might be a little bit younger. They might be a little bit softer than from what we knew, but they want to do the job. And hopefully these shows, maybe there's a supervisor who's kind of soft or kind of doesn't do the right things watching the show and says, I got to let my detectives work. And again, don't do it the way I do it, but go to the higher ups and say, we got to get more aggressive. We got to work the clock 24/7. We can't let these families down. So I hope that those shows truly change somebody and they give that they give that power where somebody's watching that show and it changes them. So I think that's extremely
Yeah,
important.
that's what I shot for it when the cold case. When you first called me about the cold case one, at first you remember I was like, nah, I don't want to do it, and then you was like, listen, it's gonna get done. So you want to tell your story yourself. You know what I mean? And don't let nobody else create who you are. Like you get to tell your own story. Then when I talked to the producer and I told them, I said, the only way I participate is you got to make it where people can learn something from it. You know what I mean? And then the both instances, I'm willing to, because the second one, we talked about that, and I said like I cried when I saw the second one because I hadn't seen the interrogation in since being sober. Like when y'all gave me the video and I had to look at it, I was still numbing myself back then to get ready for trial. But that was the first time I saw it, like a lot of the footage sober, and it hit me like, yo, you was really, really going through it. I hadn't felt that impact before. And
I think Mike, not to cut you off, but I think that with these shows sometimes like there's a lot of good, but you also worry about the pain it can cause families
yeah,
to bring it
yeah,
up. So those
yeah,
those are always like, what's the positives? What's the
yeah,
negatives? You
yeah,
as a
yeah, because
detective, you're extremely proud of your case. Certainly you want your work to be shown, but you're also worried this is where again, like I told you, like that one supervisor, I know he's got a good heart because he had reached out to Jonelle's mom a couple times for me because he did have a nice relationship with her. And again, that's where I say there's good with him. And we didn't want her to have to get on the shows, but we wanted her to know that it was going on because we didn't
yeah,
want family friends to be calling and saying things
yeah,
and
yeah,
to let them know. So again, there's a ton of positives, but also it could open up some pain, and certainly that's not why we want to do it.
mhm,
It's cool for my kids that I coach or the parents that I coach to see what I did for a living, the passion
mhm,
that I
mhm,
had, and
mhm.
it's not just coach, it's not X's and O's, and as much as I love them, they want to know. It's funny because football players want to hear police stories, police officers want to hear athletic stories. I always say that it's always
That's dope. That's dope.
switched around. Like my
That's
cousin
dope.
who has 2 Stanley Cup championships, he's always asking questions, and I want to know how he trains or what's the locker room like when you lose. So I always look at it that way. But I think there's a positive with it, and I think there's also a negative, as
100.
long as the family understands and they know why we're trying to get this case out. So hopefully that makes sense to you.
And I wanted the people that knew me before and see how I am now to see God's work, like the way He transformed me and the way that what he pulled me through, so I could have a testimony. So that's what like it hit for me. And we're gonna end it all with like when you see this picture, what goes through your mind?
Just a beautiful woman that you were a lucky man.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Pain. It brings me pain because again, the, the night thinking of how scared she was.
Mm-hmm.
I hope that she knows we got justice for her. I hope
Mm-hmm.
she knows the legacy she left. I think that's extremely important to close with. The legacy, not about
Mm-hmm.
me, not about you, not about, but what the legacy of Jonelle Melton. It's important um, that everyone knows nationwide that she was a phenomenal woman, a phenomenal teacher, a better person, and she left a legacy with these kids that she taught.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, with me, man, it's like the lessons I had to learn, some tough lessons in life. You know what I mean? And it was like just wishing I could rewind the hands of time and not being able to. That that lesson was tough, and the finally being able to have you come on to solve it, because I don't know honestly, bro, if I would be here right now if you hadn't come on to that case. Like because things had got so dark and I didn't really I was losing the passion to live.
And
Like it
that,
had it
yeah,
had it had it had got to that point, especially after Ron died. And then it was like I didn't really have the money to get no real attorney to help protect me. So and they were starting to come around like vultures. And then that's when God brought you. So when I see her, it's like this has become my purpose. So when people don't understand, when they say like, yo, this dude go hard at everything, this is on my screen at work, this picture. So every day I clock into work and I gotta work with those kids at my job, I see this first. So any day I come in there and I might be feeling like I don't feel like doing this, I see that picture.
I mean,
Yo, bro, you
that's
gotta
moving.
go.
Yeah,
You,
that's
you got,
that. It's
you know what
moving,
I mean?
Mike. It's moving, and again, I'm
You know what
blessed
I
to have
mean?
our friendship. I'm blessed to watch your change because I remember some of the calls that we had. You were struggling, and I was
Hmm.
trying to help you, but no one realized what you went through. I
Yeah.
can't ever right. I can't ever put myself in how you were treated or how you were looked, and I know you're a great man. I love you as a brother,
I
and
love you too, bro.
I just this was fun. Again, I hope that whoever's listening understands that these cases aren't easy. That there comes with a lot of hard sweat, tears, blood, emotions. Sometimes things don't go right for you, but in the end, we're doing the Lord's work, and we're trying to do what's right. And I think that if you just keep that steady, that's what it's about. And again,
Mm.
I'm blessed every day that you and I talk. I'm blessed every day to share my son's stories and let you know what's going
Yeah,
on with
yeah,
my
I can't.
life. And
Yeah, I love it
that's
though, bro.
who would believe that, right? You wouldn't believe that, but I
Nah,
told
you
you.
told me though.
I
You
told
said,
you.
yo, you said we gonna be close friends when all this over. I said, bro, I'm not never talking to you. You was like, man, you was like, you don't even gotta get no lawyer now. We could go have a cheeseburger. We could just talk. I said, bro, I'm not talking to you, man. Now
Yeah,
look at us now. That's all God's work, man.
yeah.
So Scott, I
That,
want to I want
yeah.
to thank you for coming on, bro. And this has been a great thing. I learned definitely a whole lot doing this podcast. And once I get off, I'm gonna send the thing to my thing that make the clips, and you're gonna see highlights galore, bro. So, and I'm gonna send you something to your email too, so you'll
All
have
right.
all the clips from this interview. All
I
right.
just want to close that I love you and
I love you too, man.
remember this. The Monmouth County Prosecutor's Office is a great place. There's great workers. There is some boobs, but that place is awesome. I love it. Neptune City Police Department, the same. But the guys that I mentioned, from the Dave DeSames, the Brian Crows, um, the Chief Kersinbombs, those guys deserve a tip of the hat. Again, you just hope the public knows that there is good guys there.
Yeah,
And
yes,
there's
man.
good guys everywhere in the country. There's guys that just want to do the job. So I hope that this changes it from people that know you and are
Yeah,
listening, that
yeah.
there's good cops. Again, there's boobs and there's bad ones. We're not saying
Hmm.
there's not, but there's so many good ones. And I hope it brings the communities a little bit closer. And I hope
Yeah,
they can
man.
remember our relationship when they're doubting something. But I love you,
Indeed.
brother. I appreciate you having me on. This was fun.
No doubt, man. Tell Wendy I said thanks, man.
I
All
will,
right.
buddy. You be
I love you
safe.
too, bro.
See you,
Indeed,
buddy.
man. All right. Wow. That was tough. That was a lot, man. I hope you guys really enjoyed this episode as much as I did. And then afterwards I'm gonna send out the clips so you'll see a lot of clips from here and we're gonna go from there. So enjoy the rest of your night, get some rest. Shalom.